All right. We should be live. You guys should be audible. Yep, everything looks good there. It looks like. Welcome everyone. This is Andres Restart, and I am joined by two of my friends, Bo from BoTalksGames and Nishquick from NishquickPops. Both their channels are linked in the description below. And tonight, we're talking about Nintendo. But tonight is not any normal night, because we usually do the podcast on a Monday night. It is a Tuesday night, because last night, minutes before going live, I was literally about to start the call, and my internet stops working. And I'll talk about that in a minute, why the internet crashed. And then after that, we'll get into the real topics. We'll be talking about these rumors and news that have come from Eurogamer and Video Games Chronicle and different podcasts from VGC, from Nate the Hate, from Jeff Grubb. Little bits and details that have come out about Switch 2, different features it may or may not have, but also about 3D Mario, like a brand new 3D Mario potentially launching with Switch 2. Metroid Prime 4, we got an interesting quote from someone who knows things about Metroid Prime 4 in the midst of all this. And we're also going to be talking about Pokemon, because we got a Presents today, and I just uploaded a video, my thoughts on it, or my thoughts on a piece of it, a couple hours before the show. It was up late because I had no internet for most of the day. But I think there's something interesting about the Presents that presents some intriguing possibilities about next year. So I just want to make sure, before we go any further, that everything looks and sounds good. That is the plan. Okay, looks like the countdown worked. Was there music on the countdown? There should have been. I hope you guys heard the music and it was well balanced. It looks like things are okay. But yeah, guys, let me know how everything is looking and sounding. Bo, Nishquick, you can talk now.
Yeah, okay.
How are you guys doing?
We got the approval to speak. But yeah, Pokemon Presents, I usually wake up early. I always set my alarm. I'm always like, oh, let's see what they're gonna announce this time. Let's see what new game, what new DLC they're gonna announce. Last two times we had a Pokemon Presents, I slept in. Because I was like, no, I don't see them having anything too big. Because even in February for the Pokemon Day one, I remember that one not being that good. And this one, I woke up and I go on Twitter and I saw Giraffe Raikou, and I was like, what have they done to Raikou? No. I'm very sad about that. I'm very sad that Raikou is now an abomination, but that's just how I feel about it.
He's fine.
He looks like a giraffe. He looks like the tall necks from Horizon.
No, yeah, I'm making that comparison, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I normally also don't. The second Pokemon Presents of the year, I normally don't actually watch. I don't live stream it, because they're usually a little bit slower paced. There's usually not too many crazy announcements. I watch it after the fact. I skip some of the stuff that's not important to me, and then I watch what I care about, and then I talk about it later, which is exactly how I've handled the Presents today.
I just feel really sad for all my friends who have been wanting Mystery Dungeon remasters and remakes, and they're just not happening. And it's kind of sad, because I would want to play those games on Switch as well. The good ones, because everyone says Explorers of Sky, Darkness, Time, those are the best ones to play. And of course I can emulate it on DS or whatever, but it would be nice to have those remastered on modern Switch, because they remastered Blue and Red Rescue Team. Did they? I think they did. Yes, they did.
In 2020.
Yeah, so those would be nice to have, the other Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. Especially for me having not played those ones, because I played Blue Rescue Team way back when I first got my DS. Yeah.
I was hopeful there would be something here.
Yeah.
Because the February, I'm coping. Right now I'm coping. I got to work out my feelings. The February Pokemon Presents was so bad that I was like, okay, maybe this one will be decent. But deep down I knew it would just be Detective Pikachu, which still does not look good. and the Scarlet and Violet DLC, which actually, I think the DLC looks pretty good overall. I'm more excited for it now than I was.
You know what's funny is I have a tweet in my drafts, and basically it was like Nintendo talking about Detective Pikachu, and then I quote tweeted him, and I was like, I don't know if I should tweet this or not, but I basically said like, you know how everyone is like, oh, this Switch game, PS2 graphics, this game looks like a PS2 game, right? I think Detective Pikachu actually kind of, I mean, I feel so bad saying that, but like it does not look good.
All right, let's put a pin on this.
Reel it back in here.
Yeah, we'll get into the Pokemon Presents stuff. But you know, guys, these are both Nintendo YouTubers. If you have not seen them before, please check out their channels. They are linked in the description below. They make amazing content. There's definitely some things I want to get into with them tonight. But first, let's check in with the chat, see how you guys are doing. If you want to at me or send any questions, I'll get to it now. We'll answer a few questions, and then we'll dive into the topics. And then at the end of the show, we'll do more Q&A. That's how we're gonna handle it tonight. But it seems like the countdown didn't have music. I'll try and fix that for.
It had music at the very end for some reason.
Interesting.
For me.
Okay.
Yeah, I could hear music at the end.
Maybe there's something I'll probably have to adjust with that, because the way it is, it's supposed to sound really cool and epic. So next week, it'll sound better. But we'll get that. As long as you guys can hear us, that's the most important thing. With no internet crashing. Oh, I gotta talk about the no internet crashing. Yeah, so guys,
share the story.
Yeah, put your questions and thoughts and hellos and greetings in the chat. I will get to those. But I guess I'll talk about the internet situation. Right. So last night, right before going live, the internet stopped. And what was interesting is that I was actually experimenting with a different podcasting platform. I think it's called StreamYard. Nintendo Prime uses it, Mike Odyssey uses it, and I was like, oh well, maybe I should give it a try because there's some cool things you can do with it. We're not using that right now. We may try it next week. We'll see. But I was experimenting around with this, and I was literally in a call with Brandon. Brandon's not here today because he got called into work. But at 7:36 p.m., I was still on the call with him experimenting. We had a conversation. We're like, oh, we probably should push this off until next week. It's not ready yet. And we agreed. And then I was like, all right, I'll call you back in like 15 minutes. And that never happened. That never happened. The internet just stopped working. It said 7:54, and I had no internet connection. I was like, what's going on? And then, eventually I let everyone know, hey, there's no internet's working. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I figured like if I could fix things in the first 30 minutes, we could just have like a late start. It would have been possible, right? So I reset the router. Nothing was working. Eventually I just had to cancel the show. But so just so you guys kind of understand my current living situation, right? So where I'm currently living, I'm actually caretaking kind of my grandmother's house. So like the deal is I kind of have half the house to myself, and she's lives on the other half for some days of the week. She stays with a lot of family most of the time. And she's 95, right? So like it's good to have family around and stuff because of her age and all of that. But the way it's set up though, because there's some security systems in place, because in case no one's around, we need to be able to observe her, right? So there's the internet is like there's a camera system connected to the internet. So the way the internet kind of routes to the house is a little out of the ordinary. So there's like maybe a modem in the middle of the house, and then the cables run through into her room, under the floor, and out her wall, out to connect into the stuff where it needs to go. So at first I was thinking, oh, somehow my grandma broke the cable. Like that's got to be my thought process. But I didn't want to wake her up. But she got up because she was confused, and that wasn't the case. Cable was totally fine. And eventually I realized no devices were connected to Wi-Fi anymore. So then we were thinking, oh, okay, the modem must be broken. So then this morning, I go and wait an hour to have a modem replaced. The modem replacement took like 30 seconds. Come back, try and set it up. Does not work. And I'm like, oh, damn it. I have to call a technician. And that's going to take days. Because when I checked the night before, they weren't going to show up until tomorrow. So, 2 days, whatever. But they, for whatever reason, actually showed up like an hour and a half after I scheduled the appointment. So I got really lucky. and technicians show up, and I'm like, okay, great, this is gonna get fixed. You know, maybe I'll get the Pokemon video out at a reasonable hour. It won't be only be a little late. And then they're like, yeah, so we can't do anything. Apparently, it wasn't just the house; it was like the entire street. So the entire street's internet was out. It wasn't just mine.
That was my guess.
Yeah,
And I
but there was
like,
no
yeah.
reported or outages though. No one on the street reported it.
And even your like app or something said it
Yeah,
was
my
all
app
good
was
or
saying
something.
everything was totally fine and healthy. I was like, oh, okay, I'm just.
And Brandon thought it was a firmware update. I was
Yeah.
like,
He was
I don't know about
he
that.
was accusing me of breaking it because he was saying, oh, it must have started updating right before the show, which to me doesn't make any sense. Like, why would your internet update at like does anyone's internet update and you just lose access to the internet normally on a Monday night when people are just finishing dinner and like sitting down? Like, that's like the worst time to like just stop someone's internet randomly. So I did unplug it to try and reset it and stuff, right? But he was suggesting I bricked it, but no, the entire street was out. And so the technician guys could not fix anything, but they had to report to like a bigger, more advanced technician guy with like a big truck and stuff. So there was actually a pair of giant trucks that came in onto the street, and I saw them, but they weren't by my house. So I was like, okay. I went over and I walked. I didn't want to like interrupt. I was like, hey, you know. So I spoke to some technicians. They were like, oh yeah, we know. And they explained to me a lawn worker, like someone mowing the lawn, basically just totally mauled and destroyed the central internet box for the entire like street. So they just like bulldozed it, destroyed it sometime past 7:30 at night. And that's what happened. So there is literally nothing I can do. That was a weird freak accident. I don't know how you just completely shut down an entire community's internet. Like, I work from home, right? Obviously I do this, but there's tons of people who work from home. And I just saying, like, I feel like the internet shouldn't be that easily like just like destroyed. So, but that's what happened. Someone mowing
At least
the lawn.
they fixed it pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, yeah, relatively quick, in less than 24
all
hours.
things considering, that could have been way worse.
True, but
With the whole box getting demolished.
the other thing is this is nighttime. What were they doing with the lawnmower approaching 8 p.m. at night?
Yeah.
Maybe they had a late night at work. They got to mow at night. You know,
I mean,
there's no other
I mean,
time.
it's usually around
Maybe
in the
that's why they
afternoon.
broke it, because they couldn't see because it was dark.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe they learned their lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's what happened.
Do you think they went back in after and realized they destroyed the entire internet and were like, "Dang, I messed up"?
My assumption, and I have no real basis for this. Just it's just my own personal biases. I assume someone hit it and saw it and like, okay, well, we're not going to worry about that, and then left. That's what I'm going to assume.
They got scared and ran away from it. They're like,
yeah.
"Oh."
Yeah, either that or what you
Hit and run
suggested,
with the
that they didn't even realize that they caused it. Maybe they thought,
They
oh,
probably
maybe
didn't know what it was.
Maybe, yeah, that's possible. But I mean, even if they did, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
Knock on the door. Hey, we destroyed your internet.
Sorry about that, man.
Yeah.
For the entire neighborhood.
They probably wouldn't have. They
Destroyed
wouldn't have known that actually.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
really, I doubt it. It's like, oh, I used to be a technician before I took up my lawn mowing company. So, it's possible, but I doubt it. But anyways, let's talk about Nintendo.
Yes.
I have a super chat here. Let me check that out. Let's see. Can I pull that up real quick? Oh, there it is. All right. Mr. Dwayne191. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. All right. Mr. Dwayne says, my idea for a 3D Mario, it's about time travel to take advantage of the power of Switch to SSD. Also, there could be a future where Bowser takes over. Okay.
Sounds like Ratchet and Clank Rift
I
Apart.
was gonna say Rift Apart, yeah.
Because they
Traveling through time
go into
quickly.
different rifts and go into different like dimensions and all that. But yeah, I would be interested to see a Mario game use time travel because Zelda is the time travel game for Nintendo, and Zelda has done time travel in very unique and creative ways, like Ocarina, Majora, Oracle of Ages. I've realized Skyward Sword, Tears of the Kingdom. All these have some sort of time travel. But what could Mario do? other than outside of what is that? Mario is Missing was the one where Luigi goes to like different like ancient eras, right? I think there's one where Luigi goes to like
There
very
is.
like
Isn't there also a game called Mario's Time Machine?
that was
Yeah,
probably
there
it.
is.
It was probably Mario's Time Machine.
Yeah,
Yeah, those old Mario
it's an
PC
educational
games.
game.
Yeah.
Well, this is an SNES game, but it is an educational game. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think time travel actually makes a lot of sense for a Mario game because you're
Ah.
right. That is like the Zelda thing, but I don't know. I Odyssey already kind of had that idea of like just going to all these different planets, and it
Yeah.
didn't really matter what the theme was. But if they just did time travel, they could do a very similar thing. Maybe like little time travel bubbles like within each level. So
Different eras.
Yeah, like the time shift
Like-
stones. That would be neat.
yeah.
Something that we've kind of theorized that they could do in Zelda at one point or another, but it was just kind of like this like if you think about time shift stones are crazy because it is those
Mhm.
pockets of time. Like you can
Right.
move it around and change the time, but it's within certain select areas, right?
Mhm.
So it's easier to kind of program and develop around that. But imagine like just being able to do it. Like imagine they had something like
Wherever
that
you
in just
want.
like the world of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, where you could just go back in time for literally everything. That would be insane because it would be
It's
designing
like
2
Invisible
whole
Ink.
worlds.
Like Invisible Ink, you can just
Oh,
like
yeah,
put
kind
a
of like
light on top of it and see it. It's kind of
Oh.
like if you have a certain item, you can just like use it and the whole world just changes around you.
yeah.
But that world is still there within the game, but you just can't see it unless you have that item to activate it.
It's crazy.
Do you think they might do something to the point where it actually changes Mario himself, like a gameplay thing? Like, because on Odyssey they had those 2D sections, something along those lines. Maybe you become like Mario 64 Mario, your moveset changes a little bit,
Oh,
that kind of thing. That'd probably be
That would-
pleasing. That'd be appeasing to the audience too much. I think it's a little bit too much of a crowd
Oh,
pleaser, but
that would
that'd be really
so
cool.
because if it's time travel, but you're traveling back to like Mario eras, that would make sense. But I would want them to do like, time travel to like ancient eras of Mushroom Kingdom and see like what Bowser's great grandfather was, or like Mario's ancestors, just like something really crazy like that.
Or just dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It's just realistic looking dinosaurs.
Yeah, like in Odyssey. Just
Yeah.
Or what if they go back in time to a point where like Yoshi's rule the world?
Yeah.
And like maybe Yoshis are like giant, like they're because they were dinosaurs, and they just kind of like over time,
And then we
became
get a
more
giant Yoshi
domesticated.
stampede.
Yeah.
Like in Melee, yeah.
Oh, this is a cool idea.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And I don't know if we're starting off with the 3D Mario topic, but I will say,
I'm not
based
sure.
off of this, I just want to throw this out there. Based off of like a conversation like this we're having, I don't really want a Super Mario Odyssey 2. I don't want the same cap stuff. I want them to do something crazy and new and unique like this. And I'm curious to see how they take it.
I don't
what
know
they do
which
with it.
topic we do first. I got 4 topics planned for tonight. I'm gonna put a poll while we finish the introductory Q&A. Which topic first? Let's see. Got a few options here. I'll do any of them first, I guess. Like, I don't know, maybe they're all kind of hype for me. I feel like maybe 3D Mario might be the most hype. I don't know, Metroid Prime 4 is pretty 3D Mario and Metroid Prime 4 are my most hype, but
I would say get the least hype out of the way first.
which would be Pokemon. And if I put a poll,
No.
well,
Not fair.
the thing is, if we take this
Okay.
conversation in the direction I plan on taking it, it's still gonna be pretty hype. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
course. Yeah. Legends Kyurem.
yes,
Maybe.
yes.
Please.
I didn't want to
Anything?
spoil it, but yes. Man, we're probably going there first. Guys, just vote for the Pokemon first, please. Please. Please.
Where is the poll?
I'm
Is
putting it up
active?
now.
Okay.
Which topic first? I forgot to put a question mark. It's fine.
What was the first one to
Please pick Pokemon Presents because I'm gonna make it interesting, and it is still probably like the introductory kind of appetizer topic. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I got our
appetizer topic?
yeah, it's the appetizer topic. You got argue Q&A is the appetizer topic.
Yeah.
Got another super chat here. Let me check that out real quick. Samuel Talks About Games. By the way, Samuel was on last week and has been uploading consistently and making some pretty good videos. I enjoyed your video about whatchamacallit. I watched the whole video and I own the game on PlayStation, but I can't remember the name. Nier Automata. Nier Automata. I saw the whole video and I thought it was very good. So definitely check out Samuel, guys. But Samuel says, next 3D Mario launches with Switch 2 in late 2024 and is a modern open world take on Mario Galaxy. Super Mario Galaxy 3 more like Super Mario Galaxy Peak. Ooh. I'll tell you this, right? I want to, I don't want to go too deep into 3D Mario. I mean, I could, but I'll say that I remember. I don't remember the exact quote, but I remember when Galaxy was coming out, there was an interview with I believe Miyamoto, and he was talking about how essentially you can take these round planets, these round orbs, and you can scale them up or down, and they can become a small little platform or an entire world. And it's kind of like the same thing. It's just scaled up and down. Like they're the same structure. And what's interesting about that is that imagine, a modern Mario Galaxy take where there are larger planets where it's at a point where they are basically like Odyssey style kingdoms. And if we're talking about like that size of planet, I'm all in. I think just for the record, I'm not trying to say that the Galaxy games are worse than Odyssey. I think the Galaxy games, I like the direction of Odyssey more, like in terms of the gameplay direction. But I think Galaxy games were better executed. I think the Galaxy games are the best executed Nintendo games maybe ever. I think they have maybe the best musical scores of all time. I have a hard time. Like I like Mario music, but I think Galaxy. Interestingly, Space Junk Galaxy just started playing on the podcast background music, but I believe, which is from Galaxy. I think Galaxy music it's just the best in like gaming ever, pretty much.
Xenoblade 2.
I was gonna say you're sitting in front of a Xenoblade 2 poster, man. Come on now.
Dude,
for Mario,
Xenoblade 2
for Mario.
Different vibe.
Different vibes, very different vibes. I don't know. Yeah. The thing is, I use Mario and Xenoblade music a lot. They're so good. Yeah. They're so good.
Galaxy 1 and 2 have the best Mario OST, in my opinion. Yes. And it was great because it was the first time Mario was orchestrated, I think. It was the first orchestrated Mario game, right?
Sounds right.
Kind of like how Skyward Sword
fully orchestrated.
Yeah. Like how Skyward Sword was for Zelda. And that was a huge deal. Like when I first heard Gusty Garden Galaxy, I was like, this is a Mario game, but this fits like really well right into this. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's kind of like afterwards, every other Mario game kind of pales by comparison.
I was gonna say, I'll pull Mario Galaxy music, even 3D World music all the time for my videos, but I never look up Odyssey music. I don't know why.
Oh, I like Odyssey music. I like
Fossil Falls, Steam Gardens. I think are pretty
amazing,
good.
yeah. And
I need to re-listen to it.
This is like the go-to basic answer, but Jump Up Superstar is awesome because, like, I don't correct me.
It's hard to use in a video though.
Yeah, you can't. You'll get copyrights like claimed.
Anytime there's like voices, it's hard to have that as background for like.
Except if it's Xenoblade, like you can actually use Xenoblade vocal themes in videos. I don't want to jinx it, but it's worked for me. So I don't know about anyone else. But anyway, what was I saying? But yeah, Jump Up Superstar is very good because I don't think that there were any vocal Mario themes before that, right? Not that I know of.
It was the thing, like the fact that they did it for Odyssey, like that was kind of like a big moment. In terms of like the mainline games, I think you're probably right. Yeah, but
it was Bonneton, because Pauline was there. Pauline was singing it. And Pauline was the very first like Mario love interest character, so it kind of all came full circle. Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah, it's very good. I'm not trying to say Odyssey music isn't good. I think it is. Like I'm thinking like Steam Gardens, Toast Arena, Bonneton, Jump Up Superstar, right? Fossil Falls. I think they're all great.
Galaxy is just more iconic. It's very iconic.
Galaxy is kind of like every single one is a banger.
Yeah.
Like it's Odyssey. Not ever. Some of the songs are kind of there. They're just kind of there.
Yeah.
Like
not as memorable.
Yeah, not everything. Like some of them, it almost feels like okay, we just need something to fit the environment. Yeah. Not across the board, just for the record, but some. Because I mentioned several that I thought were great. But Galaxy, every single one's like, oh, this is gonna. It's when you start playing, when you start hearing the music and you're playing the level, you can feel the game etching itself permanently into your soul. So yeah, it's we can go on and on about how good Galaxy music is, but it's very good. Anyways, point is, I think Odyssey is like the right gameplay direction for this series, but Galaxy had such incredible execution and incredible mechanics. I would love it if they were to maybe have more of a merger where they have more of the open-ish sandbox style Mario games, but they go on a grander scale with a lot of the Galaxy motifs. I think that would be amazing. And I'm not saying we can't have those point A to B linear moments. They even had them in Odyssey. I love those moments, but I want them within a more explorable world like we saw in Odyssey.
Yeah, because Odyssey felt like the true evolution of Mario 64, whereas like even Sunshine to an extent, and of course the Galaxy games had more linearity to them. So having the world design and creativity of Galaxy with the sandbox of 64 and Odyssey would be perfect, with some really cool gameplay mechanics.
Yeah. So we'll get to 3D Mario.
Pokemon.
I'm gonna check a couple chats here, and then we're gonna move on to looks like the Pokemon topic. Thank you for picking Pokemon. Thank you. Please don't change it. I want to talk about Pokemon first. Anyways, AB James asks me, any good ideas in mind to what the next 3D Mario game could be titled? So I have to think of a good enticing name that expresses a concept. Okay, if we're thinking about concepts, like I was gonna give you a very basic blanket. Oh, Super Mario Universe. I mean, it works, right? It would work.
Universes. If it's like hopping between
Super Mario
universes.
University. That would be a twist.
Yeah.
That would be a twist. You wouldn't expect Mario going back to school, would you? It'd be very different, but each class is an entire different world to explore. It's like
Persona.
Yeah, well,
like a
no, so imagine
system going on.
so imagine the Academy is like the next generation version of of the Peach's Castle. You go into a classroom and there's a painting. You jump through and it's a whole new world. But there's something in the world that you're supposed to be taught. The boss is the teacher.
This is like Mario's time travel, but like modernized. It'll be like an education game.
Yeah, and at the halfway point, you do fight Bowser. Like most Mario games, after you get 60 stars, and there will be a credits, but at that point the Academy collapses, and then it's just like a whole other adventure. But anyways, that's just pie in the sky nonsense. Watch that would be it. I accidentally leaked the next Mario game. It's Super Mario
University.
Because it's definitely wrong, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if they just do something we don't see coming. You know what I mean? Like, and that would be something we don't see coming. But there's also an infinite amount of things they could do that we wouldn't see coming.
Has anyone done that where they make like a joke idea for a game and it becomes real? I feel like that's
Metroid
happened.
Dread. Well, I mean,
No,
Metroid
Metroid
Dread was a
Dread
real
it
thing,
existed.
and then became a joke because it was canceled several times.
No, but Nintendo themselves confirmed that it exists on Nintendo Power Magazine and stuff. So I don't know.
There has to be someone who guessed Amiibo Festival. Someone said that name before that game was announced. There has to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes
I feel like that has happened, but I can't think of it right now.
So I remember when Twilight Princess was like, we got the name for it because like that game was hyped up. Like the initial trailer at E3 2004 was one of the greatest reveals ever. When they gave us the
biggest E3 moments of all time.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But if you ever want to get goosebumps, like just look up E3 2004 Twilight Princess reveal, and you watch the audience screaming. It gives you goosebumps. It's incredible. But I'm just thinking to when we finally got the name for that game confirmed, though, right? Like considering how hyped up it was. When I first heard Twilight Princess, keep in mind I'm like in my teenage years, right? Like I'm like I don't remember how old I was. What, like 2006? That was a long time ago. I was young, right? I was young. So I was slightly less mature, right? So I hear Twilight Princess, I'm like, oh, why is the next Zelda game called Twilight Princess? Like it almost sounds like a Sailor Moon title or something.
Yeah.
So which sounds kind of girly, and as a teenage boy, I wanted the Zelda game to kind of feel like more like Lord of the Rings, like something that's kind of like super epic. I mean, in hindsight, Twilight Princess is a totally fine name. It actually is epic. But you need to have the context for what it is, right? If you just hear Twilight Prince, like think about it, Princess and Twilight. There's a series called Twilight that
I was gonna say, when did Twilight come out? It was around that time, I think.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you combine Twilight and Princess with that context, and you're like, oh, that's not epic. That's kind of, not that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they did that on purpose. I doubt they did. I don't think they would intentionally well, they didn't, because it was Twilight Princess for years was the best-selling Zelda game of all time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
when
can't really
first
think of any
heard it,
joke
I thought it
names.
was really cool because I focused more on the Twilight part. I was like, oh, Twilight. What's in like meaning like how like this game would be darker than like something like Wind Waker or Ocarina of Time, which I had played before, and that kind of got me excited.
Yeah,
for
when
the
you
game.
watch the trailers, you're like, oh, they're actually going kind of edgy, which is
Yeah.
and moody, emo Zelda. Like that's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
So that
I
was cool.
hated the name Wind Waker. I thought it was the silly like Wind Waker is actually the first Zelda game I played, which I never owned. And I thought Wind Waker was the stupidest name ever until I like played it more and I was like, oh, it's like the baton thing. It's the Wind Waker.
Yeah, I think it's better than Twilight Princess.
I still don't like Wind Waker because it doesn't make me feel something as much as something like Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess or even Skyward Sword.
Actually,
don't know, that's just me.
let me kind of go back on my words. My initial response to Wind Waker was, okay, that's a good Zelda title.
Yeah.
Right? It gets the job done. And my initial response to Twilight Princess was like, ooh, that's kind of weird. But then when you actually have the context and you start to analyze, it's like, oh, this is actually really cool and deep.
You know what Zelda title I absolutely hated when I first heard it? Breath of the Wild. When I heard that, I was like, Zelda Wii U is called Breath of the Wild? That's the dumbest name ever.
Such a mouthful.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild plus like Breath of the Wild, that just sounds so
Yeah,
silly.
but after we said the name 10,000 times over the last 6 years, we got so used to it.
And then I played the game and I was like, oh, I understand what they're going for. And even Tears of the Kingdom, when it was announced last September, I was like, that is a weird name. I don't know what to think of that. And I didn't even get used to it until like March of this year. When I was still saying Tears of the Kingdom, I was like, that still sounds like a weird name for a Zelda game.
It's
But
funny, all three of us kind of had different ones when we were growing up. I
Mhm.
thought it sounded weird. I thought Skyward Sword sounded so goofy.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword. I mean, once you know the mechanic of the game, it's like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
But you just see the name and Nintendo Power, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, Nintendo.
I think
Skyward
the
Sword.
initial reveal for Skyward Sword was kind of... I don't know why I've been saying this a lot lately. I don't know. Maybe there's just some part of me that's trying to fight back my age, but it was kind of mid. It's interesting
It was
calling
like,
things in
you-
hindsight mid,
you know-
because mid was not a term back then used in the same way. So like, oh, my feelings on the Skyward Sword reveal were kind of mid.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was hyped
But-
for Skyward Sword, but like I just felt like the initial intro was like, I think it was like a CGI scene of Link running into clouds.
Yeah.
And then they called it Skyward Sword.
Worse was the Miyamoto like presentation because it just didn't work.
the one it messed up.
Yeah, and like I
trying to
was
fight
like
the
11 or
problem.
12, and I was like, "This is so cool! You can use the sword like this and the shield." And now going back, I'm like, "Wow, that was a disaster." Poor Miyamoto.
You want to know what was a name that I think was instantly accepted by most?
Hmm?
Tears of the Kingdom.
Really? I don't
think so.
know.
I mean, it's like Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I mean, it's you know what? There was debate about is it tears or tears. I thought it was obvious.
Silly debate.
I thought it was obvious that it was tears, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
everyone has opinions. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why Nishquick doesn't agree. He's like, I don't know. It was kind of
Yeah.
it was kind of
It
mid.
took a while for me, and a lot of people. That also is attributed to the fact that they took so long to announce the name. People still kept calling it Breath of the Wild 2 until like the last couple of trailers for the game, and they're like, "Oh, so it's actually called Tears of the Kingdom." I'm like, "Yes, it's been called that for so long."
I have a friend who still calls it Breath of the Wild too. I don't know why he's adamant. He's like, I'm not calling it Tears of the Kingdom.
I have a friend who calls it Tears of the Fallen Kingdom, and I'm like, "You're making it more of a mouthful than it needs to be."
You know what's gonna
Jurassic
be?
Park now.
You know what's gonna be a real problem if they don't move on from from the Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom line and have a
Yeah.
third game. So what do we call it? Do we call it Breath of the Wild 3? Do we call it Tears of the Kingdom 2? Do we call it the sequel to Tears of the Kingdom that's in development? Like,
It's gonna be the next Legend of Zelda of the game. because it's gonna have
The
like
of the.
Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdoms.
Yeah.
This is unrelated, but in the Nintendo financials, the Princess Peach will
Yes.
star in her own game. What? Why? Why'd they put that
someone
there?
made a mock-up of the box art with all of that on it. And I'm
Did
like, yes.
I need to see that.
Yeah, that would be pretty. That would be funny. I you know what I bet it is. I bet like they just kind of have like a script for different games that are available, and that may have been just kind of like what they.
Whatever exact phrase was said is what they put it as.
Yeah, like just maybe
Yeah.
copied and pasted it from like a script or something they had.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they should have just said
they didn't-
Peach
yeah.
game, but
Yeah.
or a
They
Princess
did
Peach game.
refer to Breath of the Wild 2 as sequel to Breath of the Wild, and then Aonuma just
Yeah,
kept
they
going
did.
with that.
I guess the other problem is that because I guess the Peach game is a new series,
Yeah.
so they can't reveal the series name yet. So that maybe that's
So you
part of
think
what
they're
it
gonna
is.
make more of those Peach games?
Well, if it does well,
Yeah.
there's
That'd be
games
cool.
that Nintendo released that could be a series that haven't become a series.
Arms. They should make a.
I was
they should
gonna
make
say
legs.
arms.
They should make
Please.
legs. We have the leg strap. Why don't they
No.
make legs?
I'll take with two. I'll sell for 2 arms.
Yeah.
2 arms or kneecaps. Anyway, all right, moving on. We got stuff to talk about. I'm not gonna let's not try and tangent too much on some Q&A stuff here. Hello there, Koroxy Jr. Glad to see you as well. Hi to Silverlight. I hope your day has been well. Do you think Nintendo will ever make a new Star Fox game? Yes, I do think they will make a new Star Fox game. I actually think Nintendo's done a good job of revisiting some of their franchises this gen. It's just kind of really a matter of time before we get like the next one. Probably on Switch 2. Unless they give us a remaster of like Star Fox Adventures or Assault or something. I'll take that.
Outside of stuff like Ice Climber and Star Tropics, I feel like most stuff is on the table. You know, we'll get F-Zero.
Yeah.
Even without the current rumors, I think we'll get F-Zero.
I actually think there's a
Hope
good
so.
chance that
I really hope.
yeah, F-Zero,
We'll get
Star
Kid Icarus.
Fox,
For sure.
Kid Icarus. The one that you didn't mention that is maybe up for debate, but I have hope for, is Mother or the Earthbound series.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh
Sure.
Yeah.
yes.
Like that one might be a long. Well, I don't know. Like the it's kind of like we talked about like if we ever get a remake of Super Mario RPG, and now we're getting it, right? So it's kind of like there are things that we've dreamed of and Nintendo has made, right? Recently.
And Nintendo knows we want it because Reggie has commented on it many times saying, like, he's made jokes being like, oh, I have the only copy of the Western Mother 3 release in my house or something. And he's not like telling the truth or anything. He's just making the joke and he's acknowledging it. Same like how they acknowledged it in E3 2015, I think, the Robot Chicken E3. They're like, oh, Reggie, give us Mother 3, and they throw the fireball at him. So they know we want it, they're just not doing it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I still feel like
Yeah.
they were doing it at some point because
I
I
think they
think that
were.
was one of Emily Rogers' first rumors, and it's like the one thing she was wrong about out of everything. So,
Yeah.
and then they did
Really?
Earthbound
Wow.
Beginnings. Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm not convinced they weren't doing it, and then they just stopped because the Wii U was a failure
Oh, that's sad.
or something.
The Switch is a success.
I just kind of thought it was the whole localization problem. And,
Yeah, maybe they realized while they were doing it, they're like, we can't
Yeah.
release this game.
But also something to consider. Now that we have Pikmin 4, we thought we were getting Pikmin 4 a long time ago. Because Miyamoto, he said in a random interview, maybe he wasn't supposed to, but he said the game was nearly done back in 2015.
2015, yeah.
Obviously, and
Iconic.
whatever that game was then is not what it is now.
Yeah.
So I don't think Nintendo even wanted to give up on Pikmin necessarily. Like I think Nintendo was high on Pikmin. I think they're clearly high on Pikmin. It's just sometimes there's so much going on and variables that just because we don't see something doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah.
But
My big hope is, I mean, I don't want to make this another tangent, but I just want a Xenoblade X remaster, please. But yeah,
Oh, it's coming. It's cooking.
yeah, it's
I
coming.
agree. I mean, I think it needs to be. Like one big issue about Xenoblade X is the font size. Font size is so
Oh, yeah,
damn
yeah.
small. And at the time I had perfect vision, and it was still bad. So that's a whole.
I
other
could definitely
thing.
see
It's
that
been a
being
long
a
time
late
ago.
Switch game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it
Yeah.
could be the. Well, you know what? We're gonna get into it, so I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
I'm keeping.
Let's
Yeah,
stick
we're,
to the
we're gonna get
topics,
we're
yeah.
gonna get into it.
Sorry.
No, it's
We're
okay.
talking about Pokemon.
It's okay. It's okay. We are gonna talk about Pokemon. It's winning the poll, and it better stay winning. You know, I'm ending the poll now, so that I can guarantee that we're talking about Pokemon. All right, so I'm ending the poll. That way you can't reverse it on me. The poll has ended.
I think people are really excited for Pokemon.
People are really
The results
excited to talk
show
about Pokemon Presents 49%. It's
More excited than Metroid Prime.
It is because most people in the chat love me and respected my wish to vote for Pokemon, so we can talk about it first. So thank you for that. We're gonna talk about Pokemon in a minute here. Ronnie Fazio asks me, is it possible that the Switch 2 with an 8-inch screen might just be a Nintendo Switch XL and not a next generation system? Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Is it likely? No, it's not likely. We'll dive deeper into that, but basically there's just it's too many reports, I think. Now granted too, in defense of that, like I remember with the Switch Pro report, there was a lot of sources coming out, but there was conflation involved, and this is something that's not this is not a report for something that's going to be announced in a week or two. This is something that's like off into next year, right? And this is something that has, it's not just being reported with an 8-inch screen, it's also being reported with extra storage size, for example. And there's a lot of talk about backwards compatibility. Like, this information is coming from devs. They have developer units. Like, this is something that has more horsepower. Also, what are the odds that Nintendo has another larger Switch screen 7.5 years after the Switch came out, as opposed to a next generation system? I just think it's really unlikely. Nothing's impossible, but I think it's safe to say that what we're hearing about is Switch 2. Does anyone disagree
I
with
still
that?
think they could do a cheaper Switch, maybe. Kind of like how they did the new 2DS XL after the Switch came out.
Totally.
There could be a cheaper model.
Totally, but is
an
that
an 8-inch LCD screen makes no sense when the OLED exists.
Yeah.
For the base Switch is what I'm saying. Like for Switch 2 maybe, but
yeah,
people already have the OLED. They're not going to upgrade to an LCD.
Right. I do agree with you. We might get it. We could get an announcement for like another Switch unit version. But I mean, it's kind of like how they did the new 2DS, like late to 3DS generation.
Yeah. Like a docked-only Switch, little box or something.
And what's crazy, they might not announce that until 2025. So it's possible, but
right when they announce the Switch 2.
Right when they announce the Switch 2, totally. Totally. Having Hope has renewed their membership for 6 months. Having Hope says, hey y'all, hey Andres, hello there, Having Hope. Thank you for staying a member all this time. I'm glad to have you around. Tony Larani, this is the last chat. It was Untitled Peach game for a while. Untitled Goose Game for a moment had a sequel. Man, Peach is a goose. Oh, that's her transformation. When she went at the end of the Peach trailer, when it goes white and something's about to happen, it's because she's transforming into a goose.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, guys, you got to play the prequel, Untitled Goose Game. It's actually a good game, so it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Short too.
Yeah,
a couple hours.
Yeah, it's easily digestible. But now let's get into the topic before we do a tangent and we cannot return. All right, so first topic. Pokemon Presents. Our thoughts. What do we make of that presentation today?
Well, like I said, I slept in and I woke up to Giraffe Raikou. And I don't have much to say on it, but I don't really, like I was saying earlier, I don't really like how Detective Pikachu looks. I don't think it looks very good, and like I was saying, like people joke about some games looking like PS2 games, and I'm not saying that Detective Pikachu looks like a PS2 game, but I'm like, these graphics are not up to like Nintendo Switch standards. I don't think so. Other people may.
It's
or
all
may
in the
not think so.
lighting.
Yeah, it just looks very unfinished. It just doesn't look right.
Unironically, Pokepark kind of looks better because it has more sense of art direction.
You know what game looked amazing was Pokemon Snap on Switch. That looked so good.
But is there any debate about that one? Like, I think everyone universally agrees that game looks amazing.
And it's not Game Freak, so I'm like,
they should have had Bandai help with Detective Pikachu or something.
I mean, I think that was basically initially a 3DS project, and they scaled it up. That's what it looks like.
So was Three Houses. Three Houses was also a 3DS project,
and it looks terrible.
I mean,
And
yeah,
it does look terrible.
Yeah.
Not a great example.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
think
love Three Houses, by the way. I think it's an incredible game. It might be my favorite Fire Emblem game, but it does look
You're right,
like trash.
Three Houses, especially the edges of the
crusty.
characters look
Yeah, I was
very,
gonna-
very jagged. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Still enjoyed
Yeah.
it. It's not so ugly it's unplayable, but it's definitely it's
One of the uglier first-party games.
it's
on Switch.
yeah, it's rough around the
Down
edges
there.
for sure.
Engage looks a million times better than Three Houses.
True, but it's also a little smaller scale. I don't even think
It's
Engage is
still-
Well,
like
there's not 3 routes, so yeah, it's inherently a smaller
Yeah,
game.
yeah. There's not 3 routes.
the monastery is bigger. Well, okay. You can explore around the environments a bit and Engage after the battle, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, Somniel isn't like as big as the monastery.
No, but it is nice looking.
There's still quite a lot to do in the Somniel.
Sure. Yeah.
I will say though, Engage excels with the animations and like the character facial expressions and all that. So
Character
I think-
models look great.
yeah.
Totally.
Pretty much
Yeah.
all the time, yeah.
But
Yeah,
you know,
that's what. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say that. You know what character models and facial expressions I think are pretty good? The ones in Detective Pikachu Returns. That's like the only good thing about it. Like
Yeah.
everything else is kind of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with
Yeah.
Detective Pikachu on 3DS. That's how they promoted it. It was like, oh, look at our facial,
Yeah.
recognition stuff.
Like it's good.
And it's actually a pretty good looking 3DS game. And you're right that Detective Pikachu Returns was probably a 3DS project initially. The Switch is 7 years old, or about to be 7 years old. I don't know if I'll take that excuse now. They had more than enough time to fix this game.
And they announced the game in 2019, didn't they? They're like,
Yeah, they
oh,
did.
Detective Pikachu will return, but
You
And then
wanna
they just
know
use
what?
that as the name.
I don't think they spent all this time developing it though. I think there's a
You
good
think it
chance.
just started?
Either they kind of put it as a back burner, like have
Yeah.
some people working on it, or
Sure.
they just finished it a long time ago and they've been sitting on it, waiting until they sort out how they're gonna handle promoting the Detective Pikachu movie sequel.
yeah.
Because supposedly that's in the works too. So my belief is that the fact that we're getting the announcement returns now is because they at least have a timetable on the movie, which is why I predicted that the Presents tease was related to the movie, which I now know I'm wrong. But I think we should talk about that.
One, yeah.
Yeah, because that part's really weird. I kind of have a problem with this. Maybe you guys agree or don't agree. I'm not sure. I'll find out momentarily. But with the Pokemon Presents, they actually kind of hyped it up. So they announced it days in advance. They announced it last week, and it was leaked, so we knew. But Nintendo doesn't normally announce things this far in advance, and Pokemon handles things a little bit differently. But still, it was the half a week in advance is a little weird. But what was weirder was the tease, because they show us this little like footage, and there's like this couple frames that are like cut in where we see the Pokemon Presents with a really cool black backdrop and like purple neon lights, and there's another couple frames that shows like, almost like glitching out like an M or two, and that was hype. That was cool. Like people were like kind of going crazy with speculation. I was thinking Detective Pikachu 2 because it returns. I think it's coming soon, and because they use neon lights for the branding of the movie. So I thought, okay, it presents actually a good opportunity to announce the movie like publicly, officially with something there. I was wrong though. But what was weird though is that it was alluding to Mewtwo, which is a big part of Detective Pikachu.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
There was like some M or something which they were teasing or something, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. There was the
So
purple
the
neon
M was
lights and
Mewtwo.
also an M&M too. But the thing is, Detective Pikachu, Mewtwo is a big part of that, so it made sense that that's what they were teasing. But that's not what they were teasing. What they were
They
teasing
were just teasing
was
the
a
raid.
Terra Raid battle of Mew with it's like,
Crazy.
I guess it's like maybe like kind of like a mini quest because you can get Mew. I haven't played it yet, but it looks like you get Mew as an event, and then you can use Mew in a Terra Raid battle. Which, by the way, they have Terra Raid battles like all the time. They just have events where they just add like a Pokemon or something every couple of weeks or something. Like that's
Okay.
it's nothing that crazy. So for them to use that as like
They
the
made a whole
tease-
CGI trailer for this announcement,
right?
which is crazy to me. This isn't the first time we've gotten Mewtwo or Mew back.
Yeah.
Like-
This is an interesting way of doing it, where you get the code for Mew and then you do some stuff, and then they're having the Terra Raids for Mewtwo. But I don't know. I was with your thinking. I was hopeful it was maybe like a Legends tease, maybe Legends Mewtwo. We'll talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But realistically, I was like, okay, it's either going to be movie related or maybe it'll be about the plot of Detective Pikachu 2, because
Sure.
Mewtwo's integral to
Maybe
the
they were
plot.
going to give that a big focus. Yeah.
Right, which they didn't even really do, surprisingly.
I will
to
say
tease this with for a
sorry,
raid, that's just
yeah.
weird. It's just weird to put that much focus on a raid when they do these all the time.
Yeah, I think I know. Well, know is a strong word. I haven't. I don't think I know squat. I just misspoke. But I have an idea as to maybe explain why this oddity has happened. Because I think that this was a mistake. I think to hype up what it was a total mistake. Like, it's a terror raid battle. People already have Mew and Mewtwo, like, or at least Mewtwo. Like, it's nothing that crazy. What I think it might have, maybe it's possible that maybe I was right about the Detective Pikachu movie thing at one point. Maybe they wanted to announce the movie in this Presents, but because of the writer's strike, that had to be cut. But they still had the plans, they still had the CGI Mewtwo stuff, and maybe they figure, hey, at least get that out there. It's still good cross promotion, still hypes it up a little bit for when that eventually does come out.
Because I remember last time I was on the show, you were saying, oh, what if the Zelda movie announcement is the next Jeff Grubb thing that he was talking about? And I said, like, definitely not, because of the writer's strike. And I don't think this is going to end for a long time. Like, it's going to be a pretty long thing. So I don't know if any movie announcements or casting announcements, like, probably no Mario movie news, no Donkey Kong movie news, Zelda movie news, or even, Detective Pikachu news. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But I do think the movie's in development because the first one did well and it was actually really good. I really like the first movie. I actually think I like it even more than Sonic, and that's a hot take. I've heard many people say that they do not agree with that take, but I kind of liked it more than Sonic. But yeah.
I don't watch
You're
Sonic
crazy,
movies, so I can't say with certainty, but I do think you're crazy. Yeah. I mean, you also like Xenoblade more than Tears of the Kingdom, so you know. And by the way,
I'm still landing
Incredibly
on that,
based.
but I sort of.
Oh wait, which Xenoblade?
You're
Which
totally-
Xenoblade?
Three.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah. I can talk about
wait,
that a
which
little
one's the
later.
wrong answer?
Xenoblade 1 is the wrong answer.
Xenoblade 1's
Oh,
good.
okay.
It's a good game. That's a good
I
game.
think, for me, 1 and 2 are tied, because initially when I beat 2, I didn't like it as much as 1, but then I thought about 2 more, and I was like, wow, that was a very good game. I was just not, like, giving it the credit that it deserves, and I think now they're tied for me, but 3 is still the best for me.
They're all great.
Yeah, best trilogy ever.
I love each Xenoblade game, including X and all the DLC.
X, yes.
I don't need to play X.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm waiting for that port.
It's different.
I've just been holding out for 6 years. I have it on Wii U. I'm just waiting at this point. I'm not. They will port it. There's no way they don't.
Yeah, X is different than the other games, though.
X
so
is very different.
So it could potentially mean you like it less than the others or more. So
I do like the music that I've heard.
The music is
I know it's kinda
hype.
polarizing,
It's so
but I like the
different,
music.
but I love the music in X. It is so good, so
It's
good.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's the composer of Attack on Titan, Hiroyuki Sawano. He's the one who did.
Yes.
Xenoblade
Yo,
X.
when you listen to Xenoblade X, you're like, "Am I listening to
Awesome.
Attack on Titan?" Yeah. That totally. Yes, and it's great.
But
It's great.
Another thing is, this is a common misconception, but Xenoblade X was actually the first Nintendo open world game, even before Breath of the Wild, because it was seamless, no loading screens. You could go from one side of the map to the other with no loading screens.
You could also fly in it.
You can also fly from one side of the map to the other with no loading screens.
Up and down too. There's a lot of verticality.
Yeah, and Monolith Soft like took a lot of what they learned from Xenoblade X and put it into Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So, and of course Xenoblade 2 and 3, but Breath of the Wild was Breath of the Wild because of Xenoblade X.
Well, does anyone say that Xenoblade X is? Does anyone say that Breath of the Wild was Nintendo's first open world game?
A lot of people. I think I hear that a lot from people who just don't like know much about Xenoblade, because X didn't even sell 1 million copies, which is sad. Which is why I want.
But it was on the Wii U.
Yeah.
You know. The thing is, X is hype. Like I was actually watching Player Essence the other day. I was in the chat for one of his live streams, and I was arguing that I think if X like never came out on Switch and never came out on Wii U and was just announced as like a Switch title and it was promoted, it would probably it might even be the best selling Xenoblade game.
Oh yeah.
Because like it just
It's got mechs.
it's got mechs. The
Yeah.
scope of it's insane. Like you can
Yeah.
really market it as like a really like high budget, big deal kind
It
of
is
game.
the most MMO of the Xenoblade games. I will say though that the gameplay loop is a little bit of a larger barrier of entry, but once you get the hang of it, it's very addicting. And like one real quick thing, that whole like affinity system from Future Redeemed is basically a major mechanic in Xenoblade
Yeah,
X,
we should go back
which
to
they brought
Pokemon
back in.
though.
Yeah.
That's all right. I mean, I love
Yeah.
talking about Xenoblade too. But Nintendo Prime in the chat, what's up, buddy? Does point out that technically, the very first open world game was Legend of Zelda on Nintendo
Oh.
Entertainment System and Famicom.
Yes,
So, you know,
because it was the first open world game ever.
yeah. Well, these things can get really blurred. Like.
Yeah.
We like to argue like Mario 64 is like Ocarina Time's the first Z targeting game, but there was also a Mega Man. Yeah, I don't know.
Mega Man,
Yeah, people figure out things around the same time. Anyway,
Mhm.
back to Pokemon though. Just to stay on topic here, we can still tangent a little bit. I'm not saying we can't.
Yeah.
I reel it back at some point. But yeah, like. I think the marketing was weird behind the whole Presents thing, but at the same time, I never had high expectations for this Presents because every second Presents in the year is always mostly about updating on things that they already have known. And it was almost like clockwork because every check the Presents, they always update us on Cafe Remix, they always update us on Pokemon Unite, they always update us on Pokemon Go, Pokemon Masters. That was all true. All that was updated. They update us on the trading card game stuff, on the Pokemon World Championships, and that's why they do it, right? This is right before the Pokemon World Championships this weekend.
Yeah.
So they kind of hyped it up, which I'm glad they do that, because I think that shows some effort to really kind of up what the Pokemon series can be in terms of the competitive scene. I don't want to say I've given up on being a competitive Pokemon player, but I just don't have time for that right now, and I think
The meta is always expanding.
Yeah, and I think you have to pay so much to go into the tournaments now. It doesn't feel. That's a whole other conversation. I just think that there's a lot of things that they need to do to make the competitive Pokemon scene better. Like
I just follow Wolfie VGC.
I want to say this in terms of competitive Pokemon stuff. Most of us know what Pokemon is, right? Even if you're not a big Pokemon fan in terms of the games, most of us know what Pokemon is, and. A lot of us know about the games, a lot of us know about the cards, a lot of us know about the anime. We've seen some or played most of these at some point or another. I feel like the whole idea of being a Pokemon master, right? And the whole like gym leader challenge, the Elite Four, becoming the champion, going to a tournament, like that is like a big thing in the Pokemon series, right? So I think like when you have this relatively large competitive scene in real life, there's this huge opportunity to really take advantage of that. Like, imagine if they were to kind of pivot someday and they make it like a big stage thing. Like, I just think there's ways they can market and set up the tournaments where they could be really hyped and bring in they could really expand the competitive scene if they made it like something that could be more appropriately televised and hyped. They do make some efforts, like they do have Twitch streams, they do have announcers. I'm not saying they don't do things, but I just see so much potential that is kind of squandered currently.
I mean, even with that new anime they announced, it was like about a young girl getting into the TCG. That's actually pretty cool. Like, it's not something I'll watch, but that's pretty hype. It's about a girl getting into the Pokemon card game. I like that.
I agree with that. I like that too.
The premier Pokemon card set. Did they talk about that today?
I didn't see that. You're talking about what they announced in the beginning?
In February.
Yeah, I really want that.
Yeah.
It's almost like a board game. Like I like that it's self-contained. Actually,
yeah, it's just like a premier version of the Pokemon cards.
I think it's pricey though.
Yeah, it's very pricey and it's like boxed all nice.
Minor cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. But we did get the Pokemon trading card game announced for NSO and Pokemon Stadium 2, which is cool. And seeing NSO announcements in it presents that I think that's big. Still no Game Boy stuff, but I think that they can wait for that. They don't have to announce it all in one shot. So
yeah.
But let's talk about the DLC. Like I think it's looking good. By the way, I actually liked the Detective Pikachu Returns trailer more this time than last time. Maybe not enough to buy it, but I was like, okay, I kind of see why it's kind of cool. I think they did a better job this time.
Well, they actually showed some gameplay this time.
Yeah,
nice.
it looked kind of fun. Like it looked like a detective game. I was like, okay, that seems kind of cool. And I actually feel better about the DLC now too. Like I think they showed more of the DLC. I think they showed that both waves look like pretty expansive worlds to explore. And so that to me is interesting. I actually like the Pokemon designs, even the Brachiosaurus Raikou.
Yeah,
So
I like him too. Diplin, it's great.
Diplin.
I like that they
That one's
gave
cool.
Duraludon an evolution.
Archaludon!
Yeah, Archaludon. Whenever they give
yeah.
an evolution to a previous gym Pokemon, I just always get excited.
Yeah.
So doing that for Diplin and Duraludon, yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah, and
Give me more,
Duraludon's
always.
already like a pretty powerful Pokemon already. So the fact that it has another
The
evolution,
defense stat on that thing.
yeah, but on the flip side, because you know Eviolite, it makes
True. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Eviolite Duraludon.
Right, so Duraludon, like, it makes Duraludon better because it can have higher defenses, or you can go
You're
more
right.
offenses. I don't know what the stats will be, but it's interesting how they went with that. But
Yeah.
on the note of Archaludon, I think this kind of is a big deal. Not because of the Pokemon itself, but because of what it's suggesting. Yes, I'm talking about the Pokemon Legends game now. All right, so typically, every Pokemon mainline title has teases for the upcoming title. Like they're you know, like all these games come out every other year, like every year, right? So they already know what's coming next year, right? So they put in teases. This always happens. And the Riddler, some of you may be familiar. It's probably the most common, most well-known, most reputable Pokemon leaker there is.
He's 100% track record, I think.
Yeah.
For like years now.
Yeah.
The tricky part is that given the name, you might be to sort out that he doesn't just tell us what's happening. He gives us hints. He puts out clues. So it's kind of up for debate. But in hindsight, you see what he was teasing all the time. So yeah, I agree. Great track record. He's teasing that there would be something in the DLC that would kind of point out what's coming out next year. And he's put out polls and stuff that seem to be also suggesting that something Generation 5 related is happening next year. And so there's some debate on what that Generation 5 thing is, but I don't think it's a remake because it's too soon. So now I'm on the camp of it's a Legends game, which has been thrown out, right? So now focusing on what they showed off during this Presents, there's a couple big things, I think. You have the Archaludon, right? So that's an evolution of Duraludon. And arches, like archways from bridges, it's a bridge. Like in Nintendo's actual post of Archaludon, like they say it looks like a bridge. And you see some of its animations, it forms a literal bridge. And the reason this is important is because bridges are actually a huge motif in Pokemon Black and White Generation 5.
There's like 4 of them, right?
Yeah, because it's based off New York, which has New York City. It's a whole bunch of bridges to enter it, right? This is not like speculation, right? This is in interviews. Like bridges were a huge motif and inspiration for Black and White. And Duraludon is based off a bridge. But that alone, you might be, okay, you could just say it's a coincidence. But Duraludon, or not Duraludon, but Archaludon, right? It's the Pokemon of Drayton. Who... Drayton, it's just one layer difference from Drayden. They have very similar features. Drayden is the dragon gym leader from Unova.
Oh, wow.
So the implication is that they are related. This is maybe the grandson or something. What?
Oh, no. You know, I was saying he's one of the dragon gym leaders, depending on the version.
Sure, correct. But point is, Drayden is a dragon. Right, and then Drayden is a dragon-type trainer who shares, it seems very clearly, a lineage with Drayden, who's using a new dragon-type Pokemon that is based off bridges, which is a huge motif from Unova, which is where Drayden is from, right? So that's why it's kind of like, oh, that's like a clear, if it's not a straight-up tease, it's clearly a huge reference to Unova. Yeah. But it goes a little bit further though, because we also have another character that seems to be teasing Legends. So what's her name?
Oh yes.
Is it Penna? I forgot.
The Adaman descendant, right?
Yes, I forgot her name.
Yeah.
Is it Penna? It's like P something.
Purin
or something, yeah.
I had it saved at some point. I'm trying to find it. Is it P-I?
I will also be right back.
Okay.
You guys can continue.
I'm trying to remember her name. Perrin, thank you. Thank you, Braden. It's Perrin, isn't it? Yep, Perrin. So, yeah, Perrin, man, she does look like Adamant. So she has the. It's not. Listen, I'm just gonna straight up show you guys. I'm going to Twitter. I like to tweet. Bookmarked it. I think. I'll show you. All right, there we go. Yeah, Taco actually showed this. I'm gonna show you guys so you know what I'm talking about. This isn't just like similar. This is exactly. It's 100% intentional. There you go. So you see right here. Let me actually like click on these images. Like you notice the hair color. It's blue, then a green, then light green. Blue, then green, then light green.
Oh wow!
Right, and
I
then
didn't even notice the similarity.
Right, and then you look at this, like the little
Wow.
hair, like little strikes on the hairline. Right, those 3 strikes. Look at hers, 3 strikes, and also notice the long bang. It's the same damn bang. Also, eye color, exact same. Exact same. Yeah.
Huh.
I think the implication is that they are related. Well, you know, Adam would be an ancestor, right?
Yeah.
So that's I mean, again, you could
That's
argue
pretty on the nose.
So, you know, like there's been some debate about what this like. So the Riddler is like is like always correct, right? So we believe there's something Generation 5 related next year. The question is more of what it is and how does it make sense. I think Legends makes sense, and the reason I think it makes sense is because it's too soon for a remake. We just got Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl in 2021. Like we had to wait like 7 years between Gen 3 and Gen 4 remakes. Now you could argue, well, maybe we get a Let's Go game, but if you look at the sales for Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee, they were the first Pokemon games. There's 2 of them, sold about 15 million copies total. And it had a whole year of promotion, you know, it had its own holiday, right? It was the first HD Pokemon games. They sold about 15 million combined. Legends Arceus, not the traditional style Pokemon game. There's only one version of it, so that's less repeat sales. And it came out in January, not during their holidays, after the holidays, after it was already a Pokemon game that sold insane numbers. And then in February, they announced like the after its release, yeah, like they announced its release very quickly, Scarlet and Violet. So they cut the hype cycle for Legends very quickly. They didn't give it its own holiday. It was just one version. And yet, despite all of those limiting factors, Legends Arceus has sold 14.9 something million. It's just a little bit under Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So if you're a Pokemon company, right, and you're thinking, okay, what makes more sense to make? Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, likely the peak of that series because that was closer to the you know the higher point of Go, and also Kanto is the biggest selling nostalgia factor, right? Any other gen's probably going to be a little bit less substantial. Meanwhile, Legends, which is just a gen, right? Like Gen 4, like it rivals it, and there's just one version, and they didn't give it a holiday sales, and they cut its marketing short. I think you know, you look at that, you're like, oh, clearly Legends has more sales potential. So if we're gonna make a pick between Legends or a Let's Go game, I'm picking Legends. Like just from a purely business standpoint, but from a hype perspective, from a game quality perspective, Legends is actually the highest reviewed Pokemon game on the Switch, including spin-offs.
It's my favorite Pokemon game since Gen 5.
Yep.
As well.
Yeah, it's great. It's so good.
Yeah. It's very good. Yeah.
So
I like the gameplay loop. Yeah.
It is interesting. I tend to agree that it will probably be Gen 5 based, but looking at like pulling some threads here,
sure,
it's kind of funny how they're setting this up. We have the Paradox forms of the dogs from Gen 2, and a lot of people have been saying Johto remakes, but then we also have the Three Musketeers from Black and White, which are also like a hint. But then even going back further, in Legends Arceus, Ingo was in the game. For some reason, he was like, from the Battle Subway. And that's, I mean, even before that, in Sword and Shield, I think in the DLC for that game, when you get your bike, you can upgrade your bike. I think it's like, the guy's like, which would be a better name for this? And it's like Glistening Black or Sparkling White or something like that. Which that's probably too early for an actual tease. But Ingo being in Legends Arceus, that was weird.
And he was taken from his time in Unova,
he's the only other character that is. See, you could argue, oh, well, you know, maybe they're just like putting references to different gens in it, and we're just kind of picking and choosing. But yeah, he was the only other character that's from a different time, besides yourself.
And he's just like, I don't know why I'm here.
Do you think Legends Kyurem would have time travel as well? I don't think so.
Why not?
But because I feel like time travel was a very Sinnoh thing, like time, space, traveling, like Dialga, Giratina, Arceus.
Well, there's the history of Kyurem. I mean,
Yeah, I feel like I
Well-
just like I talked to you about this before, but I want the original dragon story before the dragon was split into Reshiram Zekrom and the
Yeah.
husk was left as Kyurem. So I want that, the story of the two brothers of truth and ideals, and I want them to do it really good. I want them to really, like, really double down on the story because Arceus' story was okay, and I was a little disappointed with it. Like, not outright disappointed, but it didn't really amount to what I wanted it to be. So I want this Legends Kyurem to have a very, very good story with this already kind of established lore, because I haven't played Scarlet and Violet. I haven't bought the game. I don't even have the game. But people are saying Scarlet and Violet had a good story. But I still think that Black and White and Black and White 2 had the best stories in Pokemon so far. I've also heard Sun and Moon had good stories as well, but I want them to delve into that Unova lore and like do something really good with that.
yeah, I mean, I'm all for a better
Yeah.
story. I'm not gonna argue against a better story. I'm like, oh no, how dare they have a better story?
Yeah.
I totally agree with you there. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys kind of agree with me.
Yeah.
Any counter
I just want
arguments?
it to be a little different from Arceus. Like, the same gameplay loop would be nice with improvements and changes, but I don't want it to be the same, like, you start off getting warped into time by Kyurem and you get this weird foe, and I don't want it to mirror it exactly. I want them to kind of, like, get a little creative with it. Because that's what I think these Legends games could do
Yeah.
with
No,
their
I'm in
setting and stuff like
Complete
that.
agreement. I think we'll get a Legends game next year. I don't know if they'll specifically call it Legends, but it'll be that similar gameplay styling. Because I don't know, do you think a Legends Kyurem has the same marketing power as Legends Arceus? I don't know.
Yeah,
If Kyurem, I don't know about Kyurem. I like
mean,
Kyurem, but
it's an epic dragon, right? Like,
You
so
know what they could do is they don't even need to call it Kyurem, because the original dragon was probably not even called Kyurem. It was probably not called Reshiram, Zekrom, or Kyurem. It'll be a new
You're right.
Pokemon, and it'll
Ooh.
be Pokemon Legends blank, whatever the dragon's name is. So that's
Pokemon Legends Dragonus, or like
Yeah.
the progenitor of all dragons. I don't know.
the monochromatic dragon.
I would be
Yeah.
cool if we could find, that would be really cool. Like if it's the story of the original dragon. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
that's what it is, because basically the whole story, like, anyone in the chat can fact check me and like tell me if I'm wrong or not, but basically the whole thing was the dragon was there, but the brothers were very different. Like, they were once like very close, but then one was like going for truths, the other one was ideals, and then they had a fight, and then somehow the dragon splits because of that. And I don't know how or why, and then
I would have to
Yeah.
I have to go back and check my
Yeah.
Black and White lore.
yeah.
There is a lot to the Black and Whites, both 1 and 2. Like, there's a lot of lore there,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's what a lot of me and my friends back in the day, that's what we thought Pokemon Gray was gonna be. But then instead they did Black and White 2, which was a interesting and unique take, but this could be like Pokemon Gray, but not Pokemon Gray. Instead, like a Legends game.
Yeah. I mean, but as you mentioned earlier, like, potentially it's not Legends, right? Because there's some talk maybe
Yeah.
they'll do like a Paradox game or something, kind of tying in the past and future. Because Legends could be like the past game, and there's gonna be like a future game, which I wouldn't be against necessarily. And like, for example, I've thrown out this idea before. Like, I like the idea of like something maybe like Pokemon Prophecies. Like, I think Pokemon Prophecies is
Yeah.
kind of like a good kind of contrast to Pokemon Legends. My problem with this idea is, as neat as it is, I feel like if you were gonna just kind of go with like a name for a singular title, just call it Pokemon Arceus. But they call it Pokemon Legends Arceus.
I think that's like Arceus is the subtitle to the
Right.
like main title that like, or the sub-series of Pokemon Legends.
Yeah, so I just feel
Yeah.
like Legends is a series, right?
I
And
would agree.
Yeah.
And I it's definitely possible they do that. I'm not like saying they're not going to, but let's go. everybody thought that would be a sub-series, and here we are 5 years later, and nothing's
Yeah.
happened. But like
Sure.
you said, maybe they didn't sell as much as they expected.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
I mean, they did great, but
I want them
Doesn't
to
matter.
do more Legends games because I hope they're listening to us when we say that this Legends newness is very good and it's nice and it's refreshing.
Do you think Game Freak enjoyed making Legends?
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of passion in that game. Because I used to tell people this when I played Legends, because I wasn't really convinced until like my friend brought it over to my house and we played it, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. What I realized with Legends is it feels the most gotta catch 'em all since like the earlier DS games. Because like I don't know about you guys who have played like Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, it gets exhausting to like fill up the Pokédex, and everyone's like, oh, National Dex is gone, oh, like what's the point of Pokemon? And like I don't feel that way because it's kind of understandable. There's so many Pokemon, how can you fit them all in?
Careful, you're gonna get canceled. You're too young. You're too young.
But the thing is,
He doesn't know better.
Arceus,
I do kind of
Yeah,
align with you somewhat.
yeah, because
so-
it focuses more on catching than on battling, and that's really cool because that's what Pokemon was like initially kind of about, catching the Pokemon and building that kind of camaraderie family. And it's cool you can just like send them out and have them like right in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the catching mechanics in Legends are amazing. They're so fun. And I did kind of miss it in Scarlet and Violet. I like battling a Scarlet and Violet. Like, I kind of wonder if they can find maybe a better, like, happy middle ground. On the flip side, you know, I also understand maybe you want the games to feel different. So I get that too. And it's also maybe a good explanation as to why they went with a different combat system for Legends, which I liked the combat system, but I also kind of missed some of the mechanics in the mainline series. I don't know. I think there's something to play around with the combat system, but you know, anyway, point is, like, you know, just kind of sticking to the point. I do think, like, if we have to pick, let's go with Legends. I think Legends, but also to your point, maybe they just come up with another series, and then we have Let's Go, we have Legends, and we have Prophecies, or whatever the hell they call it, the Paradox.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know what they call it. I really hope they just go with another Legends game. Just give us what we want. We want it. You're gonna make money. Just it makes both parties happy. Like, well, let's just do it. So,
and to your point, I really want to see what a Legends game could do in the holiday, because they completely shafted that game in every possible method. So seeing if that had released last November instead of Scarlet and Violet, I think it would have done comparably.
Oh, here's another angle actually. Switch 2, right? So the reports are that Switch 2 is coming out second half of 2024, right? Assuming that's true, this lines up with no, definitely not. No.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, but
you still got 2 more games, I think, on Switch at least.
Yeah.
Well, my point is that the Legends game is going to be for Switch, but every console that Pokemon has been on, there's been backwards compatibility, so they always wait at least a year, sometimes 2, to your point, Bo, with Pokemon before they make the like a next gen exclusive. But those prior Pokemon games are still bought by people who own the new system, and that game tends to run better on the newer system, potentially even looking better in some cases. So my point is that even if it's made for Switch, it's still going to be an exciting game to have in the holidays with a new system. Legends is something that, you know, it's more Zelda-esque, right? It's more of a third-person adventure, and it may even look better than Arceus, which, I mean, that's probably a given. How much better we'll see. But even if they have a better running version, or just, you know, it just looks and runs a little bit better on Switch 2 without any patches, like, I think that's going to be a good game to have in the holiday, and it will help to push hardware, even if it is for Switch. So, and not as a launch title. It's just it's part of their just holiday lineup. You know,
to your point, even though Switch was March 2017, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were November 2017. When there was actually I don't think there was a first-party Switch game in like November 2017. It was like Skyrim and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon on 3DS.
Odyssey was October, Xenoblade 2 was December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mario Kart was like way before.
Yeah.
April,
And something that I think Bo deserves props for, because I saw your Presents predictions video, and I believe you were making the argument that the DLC might come out sooner. And you're right.
I was right.
Yeah.
They did say they specified winter 2023, but also September is before
September,
fall,
yeah.
technically. Yeah.
And it's the first fall month.
Yeah, it's a week before fall officially starts. But I think a lot of people were expecting it to be like October, November, and then the second wave to be like early next year. Which is why in my video I was saying, hey, maybe a Legends game in early 2024. Because, and I know that's crazy, no one was making that kind of prediction. It's what they did with Legends Arceus and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and they just crammed all 3 games within a 12-month period with Scarlet and Violet at the end. That's weird. And I know they need to take their time and polish it. They just got rewarded so handsomely with Scarlet and Violet in the condition it was, I don't think they care. So I think they could easily release another Legends game next year that is of the same quality as Legends Arceus, which I really love that game, but it still has issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty forgiving of the issues that Legends Arceus has, like
nowhere near as bad as Scarlet and Violet. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And maybe even this with the second Legends game, it might even be a little bit better than Arceus. So
sure.
I think it would be would be pretty. Yeah, hopefully, right? I think it's promising. But I just kind of like considering like the DLC window. I think what that kind of supports is that, well, they're gonna wrap up the DLC fairly quick. So they're for sure releasing another Pokemon game next year. It's not it will be another Pokemon game next year. It's just really a question of what. And maybe I don't know if it comes out sooner than the holiday. I think November is a safe. I mean, a Pokemon Legends game in November is gonna do gangbusters.
Yeah, if it was gonna come out anytime before next November, they would have announced it today. Yeah. So I think November makes the most sense now.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point there, right? Like, if we're talking about like Legends coming out next summer, like they could have announced it now. Like, I see your point with that. Something interesting though, right, is that like the way they're handling the DLC, right? That October, November does not have a Pokemon release, so they are shaking things somewhat here. Maybe that could have implications for where the Legends game comes out next year. But I'm gonna just assume that it's just because they have 2 different DLC waves, and if I had to bet, I would still bet the Pokemon game comes out October and November. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I saw you like my tweet. What do you think about that September 13th release date for the first wave? I think that's very funny because that is when it's literally the Wednesday that a direct would happen in September. Throwing it out there.
Wait,
that is funny.
Aren't September directs Thursdays though?
Are they Thursdays? Is that the pattern?
I gotta double check.
I don't remember.
It's right in that time frame though, because that could easily be like, hey, watch the direct, and then right after the DLC's out. The one last little trailer.
I do believe.
I always thought that February directs are Wednesday, June directs are Tuesday.
I think you might be right.
September directs are Thursdays.
I got a little snooper over here. Hello, Miss Snooper.
Snooping around.
Wait, let me see what is next month. Wait, October, September. Oh, if the September direct is on the 7th, which is a Thursday, it'll be on my birthday. I've always wanted a September direct on my birthday. And they've gotten very close. They've got, like, 2019 was on the 4th, I think, so...
I mean, there's no surprise there's going to be a direct.
Yeah.
I believe the direct will happen in the first half of the month.
Yeah.
Right before TGS.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about the DLC stuff, I don't know if it'll be like, hey, you can play the DLC right after the direct, but they may make mention of it in a direct. Maybe even a week beforehand. They're like, hey, or it's available this, like, one or the other, right? Like, either they do the direct a week before, and hey, this DLC's coming out soon, or they do it the week of, and they're like, hey, the DLC's out. Like,
well, because they still have to date the second wave, so they could show the first wave and then date the second one in the direct. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And now, since they've kind of broken the pattern of Pokemon games not being in directs, because they were what. Yeah, they Pokemoned it up in the June direct. So, yeah, I think we're on the same page there. But I think we can move on to some other topics, unless you guys want to say anything else related to Pokemon.
No.
Well, I was glad that the poll helped me in picking the first topic, but I'm not sure about what's the second topic. We got 3 topics. We got Metro, we got Mario, and Switch 2, and they're all close. I mean, they're all
They're
kind of
all
closely
fun.
related.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think honestly we should go in for one because it's gonna be overlapping, I think. Especially with all 3 of those. And the reason I think so is I think Mario and Metroid have very good chances to be launch titles.
well, that's
for
your
Switch 2.
opinion, so that doesn't mean it's true.
We don't know much of anything about any of these things. So yeah.
You know what? Let's do Metroid.
All right.
Just because it's the next one I have here on my list.
Yeah.
All right. So, before we get into Switch 2 stuff, because the other stuff is this Mario and is more closely tied to this, Metroid Prime 4 is not necessarily Switch 2 stuff. Even though I know you think it is, Nishquick, and we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about it. But the basic point here is that in the podcast for Video Games Chronicle, right, the reputable news site that put out the report, the initial report of Switch 2 coming out second half of 2024, when they were elaborating on that, at one point during the podcast, they bring up Metroid Prime 4, and Andy Robinson, the owner of Video Games Chronicle, says, and I'm paraphrasing here, but in so many words, he said, "I heard Metroid Prime 4 is the last big Switch game." Actually, I think I might be close to verbatim. So that's what he said, but he also elaborates that, this is just chatter. He hasn't heard enough to feel confident to make it an actual report on the VGC website, but that is what he's heard from some people. So, with that said...
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
It does, but I mean, do either of you want to kind of dissect that, or...
I will say there's a difference between what I think and what I want. What I want is for Prime to come out on the base Switch, and for it to come out like soon, like ideally like March.
Okay.
We see it in September, it comes out in March.
Okay.
And then maybe we get like a upscaled like upgrade on the Switch 2 or something. But I do think that they might just save it for the Switch 2, and that would kind of suck. But also it's a little
like as an exclusive?
No, as a cross-gen.
Okay.
Cross-gen.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I was about to have a
that.
fight with you.
No, it's not gonna be exclusive to Switch 2. No, it will 100% still be out on the Switch, because they still have it in their financial briefings as a Switch game. It was announced as a Switch game. At most, it'll be cross-gen like Breath of the Wild was. But I don't think Metroid on its own, if it does come out as a cross-gen Switch 2 launch title, I don't think it can survive as the only first-party Nintendo launch title. As much as people think that Metroid Prime 4 will be very good, I think it will be amazing. I think it could arguably be one of the best Metroid games ever, high-selling Metroid game ever. It will not sell Switch 2 launch title numbers, so it has to have like a 3D Mario or a Mario Kart on the side. So that's why I think that's why my idealistic hope is like the game comes out on the normal Switch in March, and then we get like a upgraded deluxe version when the Switch 2 comes out.
Yeah. To back up what you're saying about it coming out sooner, Nate the Hate, I haven't heard any updates on his perspective on the release date since after the direct, but before the
fiscal
direct,
year, he said, right?
fiscal year, right?
Yeah.
So but it's still technically possible they could show it off in the September direct, which is not that far from now. We're actually getting close at this point. At this point, we're about a month away from a direct, which is kind of crazy. And they may show off Prime 4 and it may come out March. Like, that is possible. Yeah. But also, apparently, I'm trying to find the source on this, but someone mentioned to me somewhere that Universal Nintendo also is hearing an early release date for Metroid Prime 4 next year.
Okay.
So
that's good.
I haven't confirmed this myself. Someone just told this to me. I'm assuming it's public somewhere. So if someone in the chat wants to confirm that, or has a link that I was trying to like search it quickly, but I couldn't find it. Point is though, maybe, right?
The reason, like, the whole Nate the Hate thing is why I expected and was hoping for Prime 4 to be there in the June
direct.
Yeah,
same.
I was a little, I saw the post June direct podcast with you two, and I remember how
I was upset.
Kind of, I was upset too, because I am one of those people who says like I will wait for a game. I don't mind waiting as long as it's polished. But this one is just it's getting on my nerves a little bit. Not on my nerves, but my patience is wearing thin because ever since 2017, all we've seen is a logo and very hazy like artwork of Samus on the Retro Studios website. So I don't like CGI trailers for announcements, but just give me anything. Give me a 30-second, 20-second CGI trailer, and I will be happy.
I'm such a
It'll be-
hypocrite when it comes to stuff like that, because
Yeah,
whenever I
I
see
know.
trailers, I'm like, oh, CGI, I want to see gameplay, this is stupid. Right? Like, I hate seeing CGI trailers. Like, it's one
Yeah.
reason I hate the Game Awards, even though I watch it every year.
And PlayStation showcases. Like I know Bo, you might have seen. I'm sure you've seen a lot of PlayStation showcases. I think you
Yeah, I usually
talked
watch
about
them.
it on your podcast and stuff. I don't like them at all. They're not fun to watch because it's like you're watching previews for a movie. You're not watching like
Yeah.
They were
game
better a couple of
showcase.
years ago, but ever since the
Yeah.
PS5 came out, it's been rough.
Yeah,
Like I remember back
it's
in
not fun.
2016 when they revealed God of War, and then they just went
Yeah.
straight into gameplay with music and
Yeah.
like the live order. That was great. They don't do that.
Spider-Man,
anymore.
Last of Us 2, all of that stuff. That was like,
Yeah.
yeah, those are good. But now it's just CGI and like, oh, look at this cool new logo we designed. And people will get hyped about it on Twitter for like a day and then they forget about it. Like, no one's talking about any of those
Yeah.
PlayStation games. Yeah.
So, like, the reason why I say I'm a hypocrite is because I feel like, because I have a Nintendo bias, right? So, if I
Yeah.
see a CGI trailer of the next Zelda game, I'm gonna flip shit, right? Because it's still gonna be cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's still gonna be something for me to analyze and theorize about. But meanwhile, if I see like a CGI trailer for God of War, I'm gonna be like, all right, it's CGI. I don't care. I'm not seeing gameplay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So like, but the other thing
But
is that
Nintendo
Nintendo
really does it.
they rarely do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It does happen. So. And I would say that when we see Metroid Prime 4, we're going to see gameplay. I don't think we're at the point where we get a soft tease and we wait years later. We're not at that point where they show if they were going to do that, they would have done it already. We're at the point where when they show it, it's because it's coming out in less than a year, and they're going to hype it up, and they just have gameplay to show us. It may have cutscenes in it, but we're going to see gameplay whenever they do show it. I believe that like 90+%.
I have a question for you guys. So I don't know if Retro Studios is still hiring, but earlier this year they were hiring. Do you think it is for QA testing? Because we as gamers and consumers don't really know the video game pipeline, and it is different within different studios and stuff. But do you think it is for like polish and actual like people going into the game and developing it, or is it for QA testers? Because I was assuming it was for QA testers and stuff like that.
I remember you messaging me about this a while back. My perspective on hirings in general, I mean, Doctor81 is a really great YouTuber to check out when it comes to like hirings, because he does a great job at looking at what companies are hiring what, and that can kind of give us some glimpse as to what may be going on, but it's not really good for timetables. I don't think. Like, unless you see someone left the company. Like, my point is that I think hiring can go on at so many points, right? Because like, regardless of what they're hiring for, if they're still hiring for Metroid Prime 4, that could mean that they're still hiring because they have a lot more to do. It could mean they're hiring a lot right now because they're in the final stretch. It could also mean, to your point, maybe QA testers, or it could mean they have DLC plans and they just want to have a team there to kind of consistently keep it going.
Let's take a look.
So I basically, my perspective is, if we see job hirings for Metroid Prime 4, it doesn't really tell us much of anything about where it's at, because there's too many variables to really know with certainty.
Yeah, they have some stuff open, but also like I haven't looked at the job descriptions yet, but it could be for a new project as well.
Yeah,
that's the thing with job hirings like this. People always look into it, and like it's fun to look into it and like kind of pinpoint what exactly they're hiring for. But whatever Retro's doing after Metroid Prime 4 is already in like a pre-pro.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
There's some. Yeah, I think some of the job hiring suggests that they're already hiring for another AAA game that's not Metroid Prime 4.
You know, I remember Super Metal Dave was saying all the way back in 2021 that they're hiring for like advanced level, higher fidelity kind of games, which wouldn't. I don't know. This is also during the Switch Pro hype. This is during the Switch Pro kind of buzz. But I think all the way back then, they were kind of transitioning over to their next project. And yeah, I think with Prime 4, I think they're just waiting for the right time. I feel like the right time is now, but also we don't know. Like, Nintendo's very unpredictable, so you never know.
Yeah. What's your take, Bo? How do you feel about this quote from Andy Robinson?
Yeah, so I don't super buy into VGC because Andy Robinson has in the past been right about like 3D Mario All-Stars. Of course, that was his big scoop back then. But since then, he was part of the Switch Pro hype, and I think Twilight Princess and Moonmaker HD as well. So I'm not saying it's totally incredible, but not 100% credible like some other people. Or not, no one's 100% credible, but
Yeah.
less credible maybe.
And he's
than
also
others.
not even started with his own, like he said, he hasn't put it out as a report
Right.
either. So, you know.
Right, and it's a similar thing with Chris Dring. I'm pretty sure his initial tweet about Zelda being the last big Switch game wasn't even a report. It was just a tweet, and then people read into it, and then it's like it gets conflated into this huge thing.
And
when it's
big's
not
such a
really.
relative
It's just them
term.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still personally in the camp of 2025, early 2025 for Switch.
Okay.
Especially after the sales numbers that we just got and the software sales, and I think Nintendo's probably pretty happy with how that went with Tears of the Kingdom. The Switch just had its best Q1 of any fiscal year of the Switch. So, for Metroid Prime though, I think it was the first podcast I was on with you. I really like what you said about them maybe trying to position Prime 4 in the way that they positioned Zelda with the Switch and trying to push it beyond its limits and make it a staple Nintendo franchise. Because right now it is still a niche franchise akin to a Pikmin. So I like that thought of them making it a launch title, but I just don't know if is it really still 18 months away? Going with my theory of the Switch 2 being 2025,
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's that far away.
I
Because
think
even with the
yeah, go on.
yeah, go ahead.
No,
Well,
you
I
go.
was just gonna say with the June Direct, everybody was saying, "Oh, Prime 4 gonna be there, guaranteed." Wasn't there. Now people are saying that for September. It could still very easily just show up in February. We keep moving this thing of like, "Oh, it's gonna be in the next Direct." I'm guilty of this too, but it could show up whenever it's ready. You know?
Yeah, I've been expecting it to show up ever since like E3 2021. I was
Exactly.
Like, oh, it's been 2 years since the development restart. I think we can see it announced for next year or the year after. And then last year it was like, oh, we'll see it this year. We're gonna see it like
I
at
will
least
say-
a glimpse, and then nothing. So
At this point, when they show it, they have to have a release date. I don't even think they can do a window.
yeah.
I mean, with Dread, they had a release date. Samus Returns, they had a release date. I think Prime 4, they show it. It is out within 6 months. So if we see it in September, I don't think it's holiday 2024.
yeah.
No.
Because I remember them even saying like after Breath of the Wild, they're like, oh, we don't want to announce games so early on before they're ready. And even for Tears of the Kingdom, of course, they didn't really anticipate COVID and the pandemic, and they didn't anticipate a lot of things. And they're like, oh, what do we do with this? So they kind of had to like drip feed the information. But when they had a confident release date, like they even delayed the game, and they were very transparent with that. So when they had a confident release date, they're like, here's the title, here's the release date, here's when it's coming out.
Yeah.
No changes in the thing. So yeah, we don't even know the subtitle for Metroid Prime 4. So when we see it, we'll get a possible subtitle and a release date, hopefully.
Yeah. So I think I think guys you touched on some good points, like with how Metroid was revealed and how long we've waited. I think at this point when they show it, it's because they know when it's coming out. This is not a oh, it's coming way down the road. No, this is when they show it. This is go time. Like this is maybe like the 6-month marketing cycle leading up. So hypothetically speaking, if it is going to come out by the end of the fiscal year, as Nate the Hate has said before, I don't know if he still thinks that now, but if that's the case, right, then it could be showing off in the September Direct. It could be like the big new game for the Direct, right? Because they always have at least one new big thing to kind of show off. It could be Metroid's time, maybe. I don't want to totally buy into that because I've been burned way too many times, but maybe, and maybe it doesn't come out in March. But kind of focusing on just like the topic of what Andy Robinson said, right? In terms of it being a big game, the last big game, it kind of depends on how you interpret that, right? Does big mean sales potential, or does big just kind of mean hype, right? Because like they didn't talk about Mario Wonder as a big game, right? From what we've seen of the tweets. So maybe their perspective isn't sales potential, but more so like just critical acclaim.
Critical response, yeah.
Correct. And then Metro Prime 4, I think would absolutely be in that territory, you know. So I think one that it's cool if they think of it in that perspective. Awesome, right? And if we look at it as the last big Switch game, then I do think that kind of gives us an implied timeline. You know, even if we assumed kind of Nate the Hate or Universal Nintendo was wrong about it coming out early, we have to assume it comes out before. We don't have to, but I think it seems somewhat safe to say if it's the last big Switch game, it comes out before Switch 2 or around the time of Switch 2. Like that's
summer maybe.
Yeah, that's totally possible.
Do you think we'll get a upgrade or deluxe version on Switch 2?
That's a tough call.
Yeah.
It's a tough call. I don't know. It's tough to say, right? Because from one perspective, you could look at it as, hey, like, you know, if Metroid Prime 4 is like treated as like a cross-gen thing, right, and launches the same time for Switch and Switch 2, it can kind of benefit from being on Switch 2 and maybe have some kind of evergreen boost, you know, like over time. Because like, oh, I have a Switch 2, I can now play that really cool looking Metroid Prime 4, you know. But it's so tough. I do kind of like the idea, though, that Nintendo's going to kind of continue to have really cool games leading all the way up to release of Switch 2. Like, they're not going to just be like, hey, okay, there's going to be a 3-month gap, or there's going to be a 6-month gap where it's going to suck. No, I kind of think that, like, I mean, maybe a month or two, right? But, like, nothing super significant. I feel like Nintendo's going to kind of keep the momentum going. I don't know what that means for Metroid Prime 4. I'm still undecided on it because I'm not sure what Nintendo thinks is the best path for that game to take. Because on one hand, you know, just releasing it on Switch is cool. Maybe you can have a little bit of a second boost with a graphics patch for Switch 2. But at the same time, like I always kind of feel like if you want to have like a graphics enhancement kind of like really sell a game, then maybe it should come out with that ability already, you know. And I think that may take away from maybe Metroid Prime 4 having a stronger evergreen status on Switch 2. I think maybe Nintendo and maybe they're just okay with it not performing well, but I wonder if Nintendo's just going to promote the hell out of the game and just believe that it's going to do well because it's a good game. Maybe they're not going to kind of rely on some sort of weird holiday sales tactic, Switch 2 exclusive or blah 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 nonsense. It's just, hey, Metroid Prime 4 is a kick-ass game. It's coming out this May. Look forward to it. It's going to be great. And a few months later, there's going to be Switch 2. Like I think, maybe that's the direction we're going in. I will tell you, I love the idea of Switch 2 coming out late summer, because then there's multiple months where they could have like a big release per month leading into the holiday. And if that's the case, maybe they can launch a 3D Mario, then have like maybe Metroid Prime 4, or they could have the Pokemon. Not all those games would be exclusives, like the Pokemon Legends game wouldn't. And maybe Mario Kart, possibly. I think that's probably a 2025 title or something. But my point is that they can kind of put in a lot of variety and have like 4 or 5 big games to close out the second half. It's tough, but you know, I'll tell you that just kind of put a pin on this. I think Prime 4 releases sometime between March and September next year. I know it's kind of a big window, but there's a window that I believe it's somewhere in that window.
I have another question for you guys. If Prime 4 is March or sometime early next year,
October maybe, if Switch 2 comes out summer or so, but yeah, go on.
Where would Metroid Prime 2 and 3 slot in if they are even planned to come out?
Well, Prime 2 is supposedly getting announced soon, so I think it's going to be Shadow Drop this September.
I wouldn't mind if they skip Prime 2 and 3 and go straight to 4, but I do think Prime 2 could get Shadow Dropped, or I think Prime 2 and 3 together could get Shadow Dropped in September.
Was there an actual concrete rumor for Prime 2 and 3?
Jeff Grubb
said
that Metroid Prime 2 is coming soon. It's like, and then he
talked. He didn't say anything about 3, right?
3 was not mentioned.
You know, I saw that Paul Gale was saying something like it would be cool if Prime 1 was February, Prime 2 was September, Prime 3 is March and Prime 4 is the holiday. So it's kind of like spacing things out.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
I mean, that may just be a speculation, but his speculation's usually spot on.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So that would mean a later release for Prime 4, possibly even closer to the
Well,
Switch
holiday
2.
may be a very loose term, right?
Yeah.
Like, because September,
Yeah,
maybe
winter,
September counts.
September is winter for Pokemon, supposedly.
Right, like say Switch 2 comes out with Mario Odyssey. I mean, not Mario Odyssey, with 3D Mario in September, and then Metroid Prime 4 is an October title, which makes sense. Pokemon is November, and they shove in something else in December. Like, that's possible.
Yeah.
I think the ultimate point, though, is that it sounds like Metroid Prime 4 is not that far off, and there's a chance, a solid one, we see it announced in the September Direct. And if not,
Hopefully.
well, I'm gonna cry about it. I'm just prepared to see Prime 2 in the Direct. I think that if we don't see it in the September Direct, then that obviously means it's not coming out until the second half of 2024, if not later. Yeah. I'm gonna check in with a super chat here, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Unless there's anything else you guys want to add on this.
I just hope Metroid Prime 2 and 3 get physical copies. I'll be so sad if they don't.
Oh yeah, I can see them going digital only, but it
I
would be
know.
nice to have.
It'd be
physical
so
copies of
painful.
Those, yeah.
I don't know. The fact they're doing Pikmin 2 gives me faith. Because why are they doing that
Yeah.
physically?
I can see
Something
them
that's
doing what they did with Pikmin, doing the digital first and then doing the physical way later.
oh totally.
Yeah.
I'll say that if the September Direct happens early, they can have a shadow drop for Prime 2 in the beginning of September, and then they can come up with a physical version at the end of September, which wouldn't be too
Well,
different
that's when
from
Pikmin
how
comes out. I would think if they shadow drop Prime 2, maybe December. Because there's nothing in December.
they could have. You mean do a physical release
For the physical of Prime 2, yeah. So that's a couple months, but that's how they did Pikmin 1 and 2 HD.
What's
So
interesting
maybe
about that is that's around the time of the Game Awards, so maybe they have a Prime.
they can shadow drop
tease
3 there.
Mm.
I doubt they would.
Oh, that
but they
would be.
could.
They
Or-
have.
Or they could tease
They've
Prime
shadow
4 at the
dropped-
Game Awards. At
Yeah, they
Yeah.
could. We always
Yeah.
say that they never do, but maybe
I
this
know,
is the year.
but this could be the year.
I
Zelda's
owe
done
every year.
right.
Well, hey, last year they announced Bayonetta. Nintendo's so weird about the Game Awards. Every once in a while, they're just like, "All right, Jeff.
They
here you
wait.
go. Here's
They
a little.
they
Here's a little."
2017 they announced Bayonetta.
they make yeah,
I'm
but
talking
they,
about Origins.
Bayonetta
Origins.
Origins. Yes,
Yeah,
last year they did.
last
Yeah.
year.
You know, they aren't. They have Shadow Drop before at the Game Awards. They Shadow Drop Champion's Ballad in 2017.
True.
So
But
they
we
could
ne- we-
Shadow
we-
Drop.
we knew it was coming though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we know that Wave 2 of Breath of the Wild DLC was coming? I don't remember.
Wait, it was already.
We did. We just didn't
announced.
know the release date.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it was
I mean,
announced. Yeah.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
didn't know anything about it. We hadn't seen the Master Cycle yet, but
right.
we knew it was coming.
I mean, yeah, Prime. I mean, I doubt Prime 3 will be used as a shadow drop at the Game Awards though. Like, like it doesn't feel right. It feels like a direct thing. But
That's where they announced Astral Chain 2.
Astral Chain
Oh,
2 would be
yes.
For me.
hype. That would be hype.
We need Astral Chain 2.
I'm
Oh,
waiting.
totally.
The developers have said that they want to make another, and they're doing something. They're working on something, or they have been working on something. Like, so it has. I don't know. I really want that.
Yeah.
I think it is high time that it is.
What I'm excited about for
There we
regarding Metroid Prime 4 is I want to finally see it so we can start talking about it.
Yeah.
I'll throw out this idea real quick before we move on to the next topic. But like, what if like Nintendo is reassessing how what a Metroid Prime game would be, kind of like how they reassess like what a Mario game would be, how a Zelda game would be, and what that amount to incredible sales, right? Because I mean, if they're gonna put all this time and effort into a Metroid Prime game, wouldn't it be nice if it sold more than 2 to 4 million? Like would it
Another
if it
thing-
was something that sold 10 plus?
A lot of the people who are working on this game have come from games like Call of Duty,
High
Halo.
profile AAA
Yeah.
FPS kind of games.
So I think Nintendo's really prepping themselves to properly talk about this game in a very like presentable way that
All right.
attracts the first
All
person
right.
shooter crowd.
All right,
you
I
know?
got it. Yeah, listen,
Yeah?
as an actual I am an actual Metroid
Yeah.
fan, right? And when I say that, what I mean is I played and beaten Metroid 1, 2, 3, 4, like all the 2D Metroids I've played through and beaten. I have not beaten Prime 2 Echoes. I know, maybe I'm a false fan. I've tried multiple times, but I always get stuck in the keys part. But when
It's very tough.
we will stream Prime 2 when it gets shadow dropped this September, and I will play through to completion. Somehow, some way, it will happen. But my point is, as a longtime Metroid fan, I care about what the series is, right? So I know sometimes I've kind of entertained these ideas before in prior Metroid games, and there are some Metroid purists that are like, no, you can't do that. Metroid is good as it is. There's people that say that about Zelda, but look at Zelda's success, right? And I'm not saying we lose the core essence of what Metroid is. It is ultimately about that Metroidvania style gameplay, delving deeper and deeper, finding those unlockables, those power-ups. I think that should all maintain the ambience, the atmosphere, the isolation, the alien feel, the exoticism, all that still there, right? But I think they do need to think of a way to increase sales. I think they really do. And if Prime 4 is being positioned as maybe a launch window Switch 2 game, and if they do want it to have that evergreen status, give us a legendary campaign. That's maybe, it doesn't have to be a 100-hour campaign. Make it more something kind of like Metroid Dread. Maybe it's a little bit shorter, but it's more replayable. But it's really well crafted, really well done. And maybe it's more like a 20 to 40-hour experience, right? And maybe there's some sequence breaking involved. It's more about replayability and maybe unlockables for online multiplayer. I know some people don't like the idea of that, but I think if there's enough resources, it can be done right. And if they are still hiring for potentially DLC and not because the game's not done yet, then maybe their plan is to kind of Splatoonify this, right? Like where there's going to be regular, they're going to kind of maintain the online servers.
Yeah, and Nintendo needs that kind of online multiplayer game. Like they have Splatoon, we have Mario Kart, we have Smash, but
need more.
Well, we're gonna get Call of Duty.
Yeah, we will get Call of Duty, but we don't.
There might be more of an audience of shooter audience on Switch 2, which is another interesting perspective.
Yeah, and like you go to like Sony or like PlayStation, you can get all these kind of multiplayer shooters, and you have Fortnite and stuff on the Switch, but it would be nice if Nintendo has like their own online multiplayer game. Like I'm not a huge online multiplayer person, but this might like bring me into that kind of realm, you know?
Andres, I have a question for you. Will you buy the Prime 4 Battle Pass with the emotes and the skins?
Oh man. Okay, so for a second I thought you meant like buy like an expansion pass DLC.
No, yes. Like a seasonal battle pass.
I don't think they're gonna go that far.
No, they wouldn't. I don't think Nintendo's ever gonna dive into that.
No,
thankfully.
Yeah, but I'll also tell you this, right? If I played a lot of Fortnite for years, and I spent some money. Yeah. Not a lot, maybe like $20-$40 long term, like over time, like over a span of a few years. Considering the game is free and how many hours I put into it, I would say $40 is like not really that much. I definitely spent more time on it than most $60-$70 games.
Same here, yeah.
So it deserved that money at least.
One thing I want to say real quick is I agree with you in the sense that they need to shake things up to get more sales, because every franchise that has stagnated or just kind of stayed the same, when they shook things up with the formula, it like worked really well for them. Of course, Zelda, Mario are the big ones. Mario didn't really shake things up a lot, but like Mario Odyssey was quite a success. Zelda was the big example. One other one I can think of is Elden Ring, because like Elden Ring is Dark Souls, but it's open world, which is something that a lot of people wanted, and it brought in a lot of new people.
Oh, Baldur's Gate recently has seen a lot of success, right?
Baldur's Gate as well, yes. And Bo, I'm sure you play Persona. I think you mentioned that you play Persona in like your podcast and stuff.
I've never finished any of them, but I played a decent amount of 5.
Yes. There are rumors that 6 is going to be very different from 3, 4, and 5.
Well, it's a different producer, right? Or director? Because he's doing ReFantazio.
Yeah, so Hashino is doing ReFantazio with Studio Zero, but the director of Royal is now the new like Persona guy. So whatever like kind of new things we might have seen in Royal might be what Persona 6 does, but that is kind of like I'm nervous yet excited for that, because Persona 5 did a lot of new things and brought in like the whole influx of like the new audience. But I hope Persona 6 doesn't like abandon what makes Persona Persona. But I also hope that same thing for Metroid. Like I want that Metroidvania level structure and the whole like backtracking stuff, but maybe expand things a little bit, make it more immersive, maybe add more voice acting like what they did with Prime 3, add more of a story, add a bigger campaign, multiplayer, all that stuff. I think it could be very good.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
Metroid, yeah.
I guess my thing is, like, I'm a huge Metroid fan, right? Like, Metroid Prime Remastered till recently was the second highest rated game of the year. I think it's now third because of Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
So you have Tears
Is
of the
Baldur's Gate
Kingdom.
really that high? Wow.
Unless it went down.
It's up there with Tears of the Kingdom, honestly.
Tears of the Kingdom is on Metacritic.
96. Wow.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's
went
not.
up, wow.
It doesn't have that many reviews actually.
Small sample
It
size.
has like, yeah,
That is
it
a lot.
has like,
Okay.
Oh,
it
so that's
has
a little
less reviews
misleading.
than Future Redeemed actually. Less reviews than Future Redeemed.
All right, so I think that kind of is an asterisk. It has to be a little bit higher than that.
Yeah. Give it a
'cause
month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only on PC right now.
Yeah, so
I don't think it's
maybe
on
maybe as
PS5.
once everything's said and done, Metroid Prime Remastered will still be number 2. But also, there's also OpenCritic. Like on OpenCritic, Tears of the Kingdom was the highest rated game of all time, right? On Metacritic, it's just like top 10 or 15 or something. I don't know.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2's up there.
Oh yeah, so good. That's it. It is, but you know, like, do you really think about
Ocarina
Tony
of Time
Hawk
is
as
still
like
number
the
one
greatest
on
game of all
Metacritic.
time?
I think 4 reviews from actual outlets.
Yeah.
So long ago.
Anyway, so like I see some people in the chat. I mean, I knew it. I said it. Like every time I talk about this in Metroid videos, people are like, "Oh no, that can't be done." And people in chat, "No, that can't be done." Oh, I just think that. I mean, what I want the most is they focus on the quality single player campaign, and as you said, Nishquick, there are scenarios where a single player game does see great success. But I look at the sales for Metroid Prime Remastered, hasn't broken 2 million. It doesn't look like. I don't even know if it will. It may eventually hit 2 million, but like there's no guarantee it's even going to sell better than the initial Metroid Prime on GameCube. And I think part of that's because of Nintendo's marketing, right? Like there was some argument that maybe the Shadow Drop would like do really well for it. When you don't break 2 million, I don't think that's. I mean, Metroid Prime Remastered is the best looking Switch game. If you disagree, then it's the top 3 best looking Switch gamers. Like it's insanely beautiful. It's the second highest rated game of the year, excluding Baldur's Gate, which has a small sample size. Like you know, if it has the highest reviews, if it looks the best, if it has an incredible history and pedigree, what's stopping it from you know, being bought by more people?
So it's only $40.
It's also only $40. Like, come on, what's it gonna take?
I want to know your guys' quick take on, what's that? Red Dead.
That was
on
not a
Switch.
hypothetical question. That was not a, you know, like a rhetorical question. Like I want to know what the answer is. Like, why can't Metroid sell? Like, obviously it's selling,
I don't know
but it
either.
deserves.
I'm confused because one, like Dread is amazing. People continuously like no one says anything bad about Metroid Dread. I haven't heard it
Well,
like people who have played the game. I haven't heard anyone say anything bad about Metroid Dread, who have played the game from like a considerable amount of the game. No one has said anything bad about it from like the people I've talked to, and it's like a good, quick, like digestible, short, enjoyable, very good game. Metroid Prime is the same thing. It's quick, digestible, short, but it's 3D and it's like first-person shooter, which is more accessible.
yeah,
And
it's only
what's great
relatively
is-
short. I wouldn't say it's a short game,
Yeah.
but you know.
Yeah, it's like 10 to 15 hours. But I felt very happy when a lot of people like came to me in February and they're like, "Hey, I see you talk a lot about Metroid. Should I start with this game?" I'm like, "Yes, buy it right now. Buy it. It's $40. Get it. It's great." Yeah. And I hope it does like succeed. Like I think Prime 4 will give it that extra boost, but I don't know. We'll see.
But
There
for
was
the
something
record,
wanted
I think the
to
reason
say.
Remastered didn't sell was because Nintendo didn't market it, right? Like they marketed Metroid
Yeah.
Dread, it sold 3+ million. If Prime Remastered had better marketing, I think it would have performed better. I also
I
think
haven't seen
remasters
a-
in general don't sell as well as
Yeah.
like non-remasters, like just how it
Yeah.
is. Yes, there are exceptions, but
I wanted to
there's
ask you
a
guys real
correlation.
quick, What is up with Nintendo's pricing situation because like recently Red Dead Redemption 1 was announced for the Switch at $50 and it's like a bare bones port. It's not even a remaster, it's a bare bones
Oh yeah, people want me
port
to
for
talk
50
about that.
bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
Hey, it's $50.
Metroid
It's
Prime
not 60 or 70.
yeah, Metroid Prime Remastered was a very, very advanced, like, there's a lot of work put into it. $40.
Physical based
Skyward
lighting, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Like it's technical marvel.
Yes, and then Skyward Sword HD was like upscaled to HD, 60 FPS, which is a very big thing, very
Yeah.
big deal, and it fixed the biggest problem everyone had with the View version, which was having having different options for the controls.
Okay,
So having motion controls and button controls.
I have an answer for you.
Is it the Zelda name? The Zelda name that
So you
sells?
brought up 3 different games, right? So let's go for each one.
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption. That's an amazing game, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad it's on Switch. I may play it. I don't know if I'll spend $50 for it though. But I also think that if there is a name value there. Red Dead Redemption isn't like a nobody title. Like that is like Red Dead Redemption is an incredible series, right? So I think there is a brand power there. So $50, I think they can get away with it. But also, it's portable. I think that's something else that people overlook completely.
Yeah.
A lot of these...
it's also 50 on PS4.
Right. So I mean, so you could argue, hey, it's a way better deal on Switch. Obviously, the visuals probably aren't as good, but it's an old game, right? So
That they didn't touch up.
yeah, so maybe it's not really that different. Like, so point is, it's a way better deal on Switch. It's portable. That adds so much value there, right? I'm talking about from a Switch perspective.
Sure.
But really, I mean, to your point, I mean, if you account for a system, it's just about brand value, right? Like they priced it at that price because they think they can get away with it. And the fact of the matter is, $50 is a discounted price.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I mean,
What
yes,
do you think of
I'm about to
Skyward
say-
Sword though?
Okay.
Why was Skyward Sword 60? Because
The game
I was
has,
okay with-
thanks to our recent sales update, Skyward Sword has exceeded 4+ million copies sold.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
Higher than the Wii version. It's broken the Wii version.
$60 game that had touch-ups has sold 4 million plus.
I don't think they're just touch-ups though, because like I said, the controls, that was the biggest problem everyone had with the Wii version. And everyone was like, please change the controls, please change the
I
controls.
think
and
they were
did.
really good touch-ups.
Yes.
But they were
60 It's
touch-ups.
the first Zelda game, 3D Zelda game to be in 60 FPS, which is also a big deal.
I agree with everything you're saying, that they're all big deals. I love Skyward Sword HD. I think Skyward Sword, I think it was actually a really good remaster, but it wasn't that hard for them to make it 60 FPS. It wasn't that hard for them to scale up the game. It's not like they redid all the textures or anything. It's basically an upscale. The upscale makes it look really nice. Skyward Sword was like the ideal game to scale up, right? It's like literally maybe the best game in history to scale up, outside of maybe Wind Waker.
It was a nice facelift.
Right, yeah, it looks great.
Like, if you see the comparisons, it's night and day.
Especially in motion with 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the dual analog controls, but all those things didn't require a significant development team. It had a short development cycle with a small team. This is a low budget project.
Yeah.
But it was a very efficient and intelligent low budget project that had a very high yield. They relied on the Zelda brand because they could not get away with doing that with anything else. And I think it was great. I'm happy I spent $60 on it. I don't feel like I got shorted for that. I think it was a great experience. Could they have sold more? If they sold, I probably. Would they have made more money though? Well, that's up to their financial analyst to decide. Like if they you know what I mean, right? Like if it's 10% cheaper, do they sell more than 10% more, right? Like it's
The Metroid Prime pricing was a very nice surprise, because I was like, I am willing. Like when I saw that in the direct, I'm like, I'm willing to pay $60 for this.
You know what?
Because it looks really good.
All right, are you ready for this? You ready?
Yeah.
I bet you that if Metroid Prime Remastered was announced last year in a summer direct pitched as a holiday title, as Jeff Grubb had told us initially, and it was priced at $60, it would have sold a lot more than what it has currently sold.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know about a lot more, but it's definitely possible.
My perspective is this, right? if Nintendo shows the marketing behind it, if they show a $60 price tag, that tells the consumer something, right? The price tag is a message to the consumer. You look at most Nintendo games, they don't drop in price. Look at the Switch itself, it has not dropped in price, which is just historic that they haven't done that. And what that tells the consumer, I'm not talking about you or me, right? Like we're like hardcore gamers. We pay attention to Nintendo news and game stuff all the time, right? So we see things differently than the everyday consumer. But the everyday consumer, they see the price tag. Like that's kind of like one of the first things they see. Like that sends a message, in terms of value. And I'm not, I could be wrong about the Prime remaster thing, but I'm just trying to make the point that, the price of a game matters. It gives you an understanding of its value.
Yeah.
Most people don't look at Metacritic. Most people just look at the MSRP.
Yeah.
So.
The MSRP and the box art.
Yeah, and the box art.
Yeah.
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 We ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we were gonna end like 20 minutes ago, and they were like, there was a huge Metroid Prime 4 expansion to the topic, which I'm glad we did that.
I will add,
go for
on
it.
the multiplayer subject, I think that is a fantastic idea, especially if they promote it as a launch title for the Switch 2, cross-gen, of course. Having multiplayer is a great way to broaden Metroid's horizons. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but especially if they're hiring a lot of people that work in Call of Duty and Battlefield, I think that just makes a lot of sense.
I think Nintendo.
It can be completely
kind of
separate from like the single player or whatever, right? But a multiplayer FPS for Nintendo.
The Prime 4 topic is not going to die.
A lot.
It's just not going to die.
I just riled everybody up in chat again.
Well, I mean, as long as a single player, as long as it comes at no expense to the single player. If they give us the campaign we want in Metroid Prime 4 game, why should we complain about there also being multiplayer? If maybe that's in their budget, right? Maybe it really comes down to if that's in their budget. Because we've seen in the past, there have been some games where like Wolfenstein 2, for example, right? Like I remember there's some controversy about that one. Because why is there no multiplayer? Because we want to make a quality single player game. But maybe they didn't have a lot of a budget, right? Maybe that's why. Prime 4 may have that budget, may have had that time. Maybe they figured, hey, if we take the time to give this a campaign that's going to put it in the Game of the Year conversation, but also give it a high quality multiplayer that gives it legs to go, not only is it going to have that initial hype and boost, but it's going to have legs to push it throughout this. That's just smart business. And it's not like we haven't seen multiplayer Metro games before. Prime 2, Prime Hunters, there has been an interest expressed in the past.
Was Hunters multiplayer on DS?
Yes.
I meant online multiplayer. Sorry.
It was kind of a big deal because it was like one of Nintendo's first
Yeah.
Nintendo's. It was one of the first online Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good.
That's
It was
cool.
actually pretty good. For what
I think
the DS was.
multiplayer adds a lot to the experience because you look at Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild or Odyssey. These games blow up because of social media and people posting clips. I don't know if people will really post that many clips, and I feel like Metroid Prime won't go viral that way. But like a multiplayer component could really help that.
Yeah.
Because I think if they go into I don't know much about any of these first-person shooter games, so if I say anything wrong, I apologize in advance. But you know how like TF2 and Valorant and Overwatch have like different characters and they play different ways, right? What if Metroid Prime did something like that? And they like bring back the hunters and they all play a different way. Kind of like how
they make it kind of like a hero shooter or a hunter shooter.
Yeah. It's like Valorant and Overwatch, how there's different characters with different playstyles. Kind of like that.
Or imagine they kind of incorporate like the Federation Force style gameplay where there's some co-op involved. What if they made Metroid Prime multiplayer kind of almost maybe more like a shooting version of Monster Hunter, where you have hunters together on a team and you have a target.
You can, do bounties. You complete bounties.
You complete bounties, right?
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
That could be cool.
And it'd be very different, right? I think sometimes when we talk about multiplayer, some people assume, it's just gonna be like deathmatch, like Halo or something, right? Yeah. Not necessarily. Yeah. Although that may not be a bad thing, but I'm just saying there's a lot of possibilities, right?
I think that's a great idea, yeah. Because even if they have both, then that would be like the best Metroid game ever.
Well, if they make Metroid Prime 4 like basically like Call of Duty, where there's like basically 3 games in one. It's like if for those who don't play Call of Duty, it's kind of like it's basically 3 games. Like you have campaign, right? Which can take 10 to 15 hours, right? And then you have multiplayer, which is kind of like your traditional, your team deathmatch and all those, capture the flag, all those different kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have zombies. Well, like, what if Metroid Prime was like not necessarily zombies, but it's like Federation Force,
Co-op horde mode, yeah.
horde mode, bounty mode, team bounty. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Team bounty.
Most Call of Duty fan, from what I've heard.
I do play a lot of first person
Yes.
shooters in mine.
Yeah.
So the thought of Nintendo trying it makes me happy.
And
I love Splatoon. That's why I love Splatoon.
Yeah, and Team Bounty, like, maybe it's not even like you play as Samus, you play as a Federation trooper, and so what that does is you can customize, and you can kind of make your Federation trooper almost like a hunter, like he can become a hunter. Like there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential. It could be
This could also just be other games. I was gonna say this could be its own game,
right? Which also
They
makes
might
sense.
do.
They might do, yeah. We'll see what they do.
Annual Metroid releases. Let's see it.
Hey, I talked about it like a while ago. People call me crazy, but like, I mean,
I don't think it's if you include the remasters, it's really not that crazy. I don't think.
I don't like annual releases for most any franchise, but I don't know. It depends on how many different development teams are working on it.
Like for Zelda, it works because there's so many different kinds of Zelda games.
And there's a lot of spin-offs for Zelda. If they incorporate
Remakes.
a lot of Metroid spin-offs.
Bring back Metroid Prime Pinball. Best pinball game ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Pinball.
So, yeah, I mean, when I talk about it, it's not about forcing one development team to hurry up. It's about having different types of games using that IP.
Metroid Warriors.
I'll take Metroid Federation. I'll take
Federation Force instead.
I'll take non-chibi Federation Force. Yeah.
We did talk about Metroid Warriors in the last podcast.
Did that really come up? That's so funny.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, along with Xenoblade Warriors.
Yeah,
which
Xenoblade's happening.
Xenoblade makes
Xenoblade's definitely happening.
Xenoblade has to happen. I don't know
That's
about
next.
Metroid. Yeah, I rather something else. But let's move on because it is getting late and we still have two other major topics to get into. So I'll check. I have this one super chat to get to, and then we'll jump into the next topic here. So let me see. Sammy talks about games. Thank you for that super chat, buddy. Prime 2 and 3 can get shadow drop this September before Prime 4 releases March-ish. Sound familiar? Oh, you mean like Pikmin 4? Yeah, I mean, so maybe that timetable is a little bit longer, right? Because Pikmin 4 came out such a long time ago. This Pikmin 4 when it released. Released in July, and then Pikmin 1 and 2 came out in June. There was a month difference, so that's the 6-month difference. So there's a bit of a gap there, right? But I understand the similarity. I
remember people thought that's what they were doing with Bayonetta, and it took 5 years for Bayonetta 3 to come out after those ports.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think that it is different from Metroid, right? I think Prime 1, well, we'll see, right? If we get a Prime 2, then we know they're headed in that direction, right? Like, once we get Prime 2, like, Prime 1, I think most people agree it means it's a sign of Prime 4 around the corner, but you can argue that it's just Prime 1. It's an isolated thing. Yeah. But if we get Prime 2, then it's like, okay, no. They're clearly, like, they're putting something out here leading up to something. So September could be very telling.
I was expecting to get Prime 4 news with the announcement of Prime 1 Remastered.
Yeah.
But
no, instead they just said nothing, and I think they even.
It was just like a weird little headline. They didn't even like hype it up.
Yeah.
Like if someone like choked or like went to the bathroom.
Yeah, it was part of Nintendo Switch.
It was almost like a they didn't give it like its own dedicated segment.
It was an afterthought almost.
I don't understand why they did that. I really don't.
What did they open the direct with? Pikmin? They could have opened the direct. Pikmin could have just been in the middle.
Because we already knew of its existence. I mean, it was still solid opening.
It was so weird because there were very big announcements in very random places. Like, arguably one of the biggest announcements for me was the Xenoblade 3 tease. And that was like the second thing after Pikmin 2. And I was like, I can't think about anything else in this direct after that. And then Prime happened, and I was like, this direct is already like insanely good. And then I was like, oh yeah, Zelda's gonna happen at the end. So
I wonder.
The direct was like,
it's so hard for me to understand why they did that. The Prime Remastered, I feel like they did it kind of dirty, because I look at it, because he also look like they gave Metroid Dread the love it deserved. So why didn't they give it to Prime Remastered? And
Maybe they didn't want to have someone presenting it because they didn't want to mention Prime 4.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is they mentioned Prime 4 when they announced Dread.
Yeah.
We are working very hard on Metroid Prime 4. Please be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, here's another Metroid game. So I was hoping they would do that with 4, with Remastered, saying like, here's Metroid Prime Remastered, and play this as you wait for Metroid Prime 4 coming very soon, or something like that.
The Metroid topic will not die.
It was a super chat. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say that there's a thought that crosses my mind that I don't like, but I gotta be transparent with you guys. I gotta tell you what I think. I'm not saying I believe this, right? I think there's a lot of evidence supporting against this, but there is an argument that you guys are making me consider now that would suggest that Prime 4 could be a Switch 2 exclusive. I do not think they should do that. I do not think they should do that. I do not think they should do that. But just let me explain why I'm even throwing out the idea. It would explain why they just kind of brush this. It kind of feels like a brushing under the rug, right? Like they give us Prime Remastered at a discounted price because they're boning us by not giving us Prime 4. And they don't talk about it because they want to keep, they don't want to kind of, they don't want to make it very public about them kind of moving away from Switch to Switch 2.
That sucks.
It makes sense though, right? It makes sense.
I think it'll be on Switch 1. So.
I agree it'll be on Switch 1, but I'm just saying.
But that is a good conspiracy. I like that.
Yeah,
I don't like that, but
you like the reasoning.
I like the reasoning because that is good reasoning.
It explains a lot.
Weird they did it for Dread, but not for Prime. Yeah.
Yeah. But my other reasoning that's on the side of good and not evil, right? The light side, is that the reason Prime Remaster just got shot out like that is because they weren't sure Prime 4 was gonna be ready. And then they were like, hey, Prime 4 is ready, it's time to start the shallow drop train. And they probably had to kind of shove it in last minute, which is why it didn't get its own dedicated segment, because they have a timeline for Prime 4, and that's why. That's my good side, my good guy argument.
I wish they announced it in September. Like, September would have been good for a November release, or even September for a February release. That would have been nice. I don't know.
Because it was also shoehorned in, right, in the same week as Kirby. It just made so little sense. So little sense. Also, like, they advertised Kirby in the September Direct prior, when we all expected them to advertise Prime. And yet, but the really funny part is there was so much shit talking 60 Prime's never coming, except the really weird part is that we all would have been okay with Prime coming out in like February. And it did come out in February, but we didn't know until February.
Yeah.
What do you think made them move it? Because Grub was reporting November, and I fully believe that they had planned to release it in November. It was for the anniversary, right?
In November?
The readiness of Prime 4.
Yeah.
The readiness of Prime 4. That's because.
But is that 3-month gap really enough to push it and just shadow drop it and not market it? I don't know. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Things are changing left and right. Nintendo doesn't care about just Metroid. Like there's a lot of things that they're balancing. It's strange.
Maybe they knew they didn't have much else to reveal in a February Direct or something, so they were like, well, let's just wait. I don't know.
Imagine if Tears of the Kingdom wasn't delayed. Imagine if Tears of the Kingdom and Scarlet and Violet were November, and then Metroid was somewhere at like the tail end of November. That would have been.
Well, so that's part of the thing. There's all these different projects that can get moved up or down, so it could be that. I don't know. But let's move on because there's other topics to discuss. So
Metroid will eventually creep back in.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Every week.
Every day. All right. Next topic. So let's talk about Mario. Let's talk about Mario because I want to talk about Mario. We've talked about Switch 2 stuff before. This is still tied to Switch 2, and it's gonna translate over to our final Switch 2 topic. Maybe I'll kind of fuse these topics, but there's a lot to kind of talk about with this stuff. But the thing about Mario is basically in the same podcast, Andy Robinson says he heard from multiple sources that Mario is going to be the launch title for Switch 2, which I think most people are like, yep, that's makes the most sense. So, yeah, I mean, that's what we've been arguing for the longest time as the most sensible option. And I love the idea. Right now, I'm assuming that, I mean, because Bo, I know you expressed that you still haven't changed your mind on the 2025 possibility, right? And maybe sometimes I put too much stock into these reports, right? But they are credible sites, right? Like,
I will say I'm more open
wrong,
to
but
2024 than I was before. I'm
Sure.
starting to like, okay, maybe.
Right.
But then I saw those sales numbers and I'm like, well, do they need to release it so soon?
Yeah.
I think Tears of the Kingdom's a blip, but
well, then Mario Wonder will also be a blip, and then it's just they keep rolling, and then maybe Metroid Prime 4 will be a blip, and then they just keep having these games that do well. They're gonna have another Pokemon.
I would love for Prime 4 to be, but I mean,
they still have plenty. I shouldn't have said Prime 4. It's not even close, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that multiplayer,
Maybe.
Right? I don't know.
Maybe.
Right?
What do you guys think about?
Maybe it has
Mario
an Elden Ring
Kart?
movement. I don't know.
Yeah, I think 3D Mario or Mario Kart could be good Switch 2 launches. 3D Mario, I think it's time for a new one because like we got the sequel to Breath of the Wild. I don't think, like I said earlier in the podcast, I don't think it's going to be Mario Odyssey 2, but I think it's going to be the successor to Mario Odyssey and build off of the success of Mario Odyssey, what made it good, and just try something new.
Super
Like,
Mario
make
Academy.
something- Yeah, Super Mario University.
Oh, right, University, Silly Me Academy. That's the DLC. My bad.
Yeah, I agree. I hope it's not Odyssey 2. I just hope I like that idea of taking Odyssey's like open areas, but then apply Galaxy style planets or something like that.
Bro,
That could be really cool,
Bowser's
because
Fury.
I was gonna say Bowser's Fury was done really well. It was just smaller scale.
Yeah.
If we get an
Yeah.
open world Mario game that has the linearity sections of Galaxy, but in an open space, that could be, dude, it'd be so good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
just that interconnectedness of like, hey, I'm over here, but I want to go all the way like over here, and like no load screens, just having that seamless exploration with Mario would be really cool.
Yeah. In Odyssey, the first level, on Bonneton, right? The kind of like the black and white level.
Cap Kingdom.
The
Yeah,
Cap Kingdom.
The Cap Kingdom. At the end of the level, you don't ride your ship, right? You find a zip, like an electric line, a power line to zap to the next kingdom. And so it was technically, that's like the one like connected bridge between. There's actually a couple portals you can find, but like I wish there was more of that connectivity between the kingdoms to kind of help it feel more like a connected world. I like that. So I love the idea of having. I actually am okay with there being an open world Mario game. I think there's a way to do that, and where it can still have like the level based structure. Like I think there's a way. There's a lot of wiggle room there. But something I will say that I love, and I think we can take this from Bowser's Fury, Plessy, right? With Plessy was like your go-to mount for that entire area.
Yeah.
Give us mounts, bro. So you know how Super Mario World, like the big promotional material, is like Mario riding Yoshi. Imagine like actually Yoshi, like Yoshi is, Mario is to Yoshi is to Mario what opponent is to Link. Like I want what if they actually made it like more of a dedicated mount and not just kind of like a random power up for like a minute or two in a level. Like it's different, you know?
That would, I mean, I don't know how long this writer's strike is happening. I don't know when the next movie's coming, but
It's tie in nicely. Yeah.
kind of spoilers for the Mario movie, but Yoshi will probably be in the sequel. So tying that in with the Mario, like new 3D Mario game, because like, yeah, Yoshi's only been in Sunshine and Galaxy 2, and putting Yoshi in like
He's
new and
in
different scenarios,
Odyssey, but he's a you have to possess him. Like
Oh,
I was
I'll-
disappointed when you
capture him. You have
yeah
to capture him.
possess
Yeah,
him
okay.
is what I'm gonna say, because but you're right, you capture him, right? But capture is possession. Like you take control of the body and you grow a mustache and you run around in the body of that character, right? Like I want to ride Yoshi, I don't want to become Yoshi. It's different.
Flip that.
What
Yeah.
what all right, you guys know what I meant, so let's just continue on. I want to Oh damn! What I was gonna say was not gonna help my case. I'm gonna say I was gonna say I want to ride Yoshi like a horse, like
Of course.
right. Like,
Yes.
like,
Yes. You want to mount Yoshi.
in the
Just like Mount
normal
Mario.
the way anyone would mount a horse.
In a rated E for everyone.
Oh god, there's no way.
I've ruined everything.
There's no way to.
You're digging yourself deeper, Andres.
How do you say this without it being wrong? Like, how do you just talk about horse
I want to
riding?
traverse using Yoshi.
I want to use him, but not through possession, but by sitting on a saddle, even if that saddle is his back. I mean, I'm sure. Okay, the saddle. You probably
Very well said.
Yeah, it's good enough.
No, like in all honesty, like video game mounts are a whole like topic of discussion. Like, everyone has been telling.
I'm sorry,
me
Frank Mario's gonna ride that Yoshi. Oh my god. Oh my god. All right, continue on this quick.
A lot of my friends have been telling me, "Hey, I hate riding the horses in Tears of the Kingdom. I hate the horse controls. They're bad. They're like compared to Red Dead Redemption 2 and all that. I don't mind the horse controls in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, but I will say the horse controls in those games versus something like riding Torrent in Elden Ring. Torrent is the best mount I've ever ridden in a video game because he has a double jump, he's fast, and like it's just smooth to ride him. So imagining Yoshi as like a rideable mount in a larger scale Mario game, there's a lot that they can do with him, like in terms of speed, in terms of flutter jump, and him like eating things. And like Yoshi had power-ups in Galaxy 2 as well. And even in Sunshine, I think he had power-ups, right?
Transformations.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, I mean, it was just like different
spicy
colors.
pepper,
It was just like which color fruit you could eat and what like
Yeah.
yeah, there were power-ups, but it was
Yeah. So adding that in like a larger scale environment would be very cool. It would be very cool to see kind of, dare I say, the Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom interactivity of the world, but in a more like platforming environment.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Andres.
I was just gonna say, like I want this, right? I brought it up, right? But I also think that they got to be careful to not make it just Yoshi. Like you want to be able to play around with like there's got to be just Mario too. Like it is they got to find a balance there, which could be tricky. But
Yeah. I mean, they could just have zones where Yoshi just isn't allowed in for some reason. Maybe like enter some sort of
sure,
thing that he can't go through. But all I was gonna say is, in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I almost never used horses because there's so much stuff on foot that you're seeing that I never really felt the need. But with a Mario game, it honestly makes more sense because, like you said, Yoshi applies to platforming. So you'll be moving through the big areas, getting to the next challenge fast. That's nice, but Yoshi can actually be applied to platforming challenges as well. Whereas Epona doesn't really. I mean, I guess there's stuff in Tears of the Kingdom where you have to like hitch Epona to the wagons and stuff, but that's not really that exciting.
Yeah. Did you play Elden Ring, Bo?
I played a little bit of it. Yeah, Torrent's great.
Yeah, Torrent is very fun to ride in
jump,
Elden
yeah.
Ring. Yeah, because you can even use him for like platforming because he has the double jump. And then even like one recent one I can think of is the Palamute in Monster Hunter Rise, because that's very helpful in combat as well.
oh, I love the
Yeah.
Palamute.
Yeah, because the Palamute can fight, and the Palamute is a very good like evasive tactic.
yeah,
Like whenever you want to sharpen your weapon, you get
Or
on your
heal.
dog and you.
it's
yeah.
amazing, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm even also thinking about Ochi, like Ochi.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, Ochi kind of transforms the Pikmin series, right? Like they could do some
So
stuff.
good.
And going back to, I mean, I think you explained it well, Bo, just like, yeah, they could just have zones where Mario can play, and it's just Mario, right? But you think back to, like, Bowser's Fury, like, with Plessy, what's interesting about Plessy, like, obviously you couldn't use Plessy all the time, but because it was a fully aquatic environment, whenever you would kind of move, Plessy would follow you, right? Like, not in a creepy way, but, like, whenever you go to another island, it's like, oh, I'm here waiting for you, right? Like, they could just do something as simple like that for Yoshi too. It's like he just kind of inherently maybe they kind of treat him kind of like a loyal steed dog kind of thing, where he's aware of what you're doing, is gonna always position himself to best assist you when if you choose to use him. So.
Yeah, and I think that having Yoshi in there would be very good cross promotion for the movie.
I'm glad we kind of we talked about. I actually think we might be onto something here, because I totally think the cross promotion is absolutely part of Nintendo's plan. I don't think it's a mistake that they announced 4 different Mario games in the direct to follow the Mario movie, which Miyamoto did say to pay attention to the future directs for Mario announcements. He did say that.
Very on the nose with that one.
And I remember making videos on a video on that. People were like, I think it's a stretch. I'm like, I don't think it is. We got 4 Mario game announcements. Was it a stretch? You know, I mean, it wasn't Mario Odyssey 2, but
I mean, this is kind of unrelated, but even Daisy being playable in Mario Bros. Wonder. I wonder if that's has something to do with the movie. Daisy could easily be. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, Daisy and Yoshi could totally play big roles in the movie. And the thing is, like, they could announce the movie sometime next year. You know, late next year. Like, they could do that a year and a half later. Is that really a stretch? No, the writer's strike can put the writer. We'll see how that affects things.
I think the movie is already in its planning stages, so at least an announcement.
Right. I'm just thinking about the cross promotion potential, right? Like,
I'm less familiar with how movies are announced. Would that be like in an investor call? That's how they confirmed that Illumination was working with them back in like 2016. But
well, it depends on the movie studio because like Marvel has their big
events,
presentation. Marvel has like their Nintendo Direct levels of hype,
and then they always all get delayed.
And then I don't know. It really depends on the studio because I remember when they announced that Oppenheimer was happening. I just saw it as like a Twitter post. It was like
it's normally how I feel like it is.
Nolan's next movie is going to be called Oppenheimer about Oppenheimer.
But with how they did the casting for the Mario movie, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get that for a direct, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really cool. Man, can you imagine, like, if they don't even do, like, a separate direct? Like, they don't call it the Mario Movie Direct. They're just, like, it's just
in a Nintendo Direct. Yeah.
I mean, on one hand, it might be disappointing because it's not a game, right? But also...
I don't want them to do what they did in September 2021 and announce, like...
The Zelda cast?
Like, I don't want them to do, like, movie stuff in a game direct.
I'm okay with, like, one trailer. The announcement, that's it.
Listen, man. If in 2025, after Metroid Prime 4 wins Game of the Year, they have a direct and they drop a Metroid...
in 2025, it's winning Game of the Year.
No. Oh, well, let me explain. In 2025, after Metroid Prime 4 has won Game of the Year, right? In this reality of mine, that's maybe not true reality, because I think 3D Mario would probably... You know, it's like, if a Nintendo game's going to win, it's... I don't know about that, right? Like, we'll see. I think the jury's out. We'll see. But, because we're not talking about sales necessarily, you know? So, maybe... Metroid
we don't know enough about the lineup next year for anybody else.
There's a lot.
Have anything announced?
There's a lot of variables, but
sales has a lot to do with Game of the Year.
Let me entertain my hypothetical. Right?
Yeah.
In this, you know, pipe. See, we're still talking about Metroid, but anyways, Metroid Prime 4 somehow wins Game of the Year, right? And then in a direct in the following year, in 2025, they have a direct. It's just announcing games. You know, maybe they announce some DLC for Metroid Prime 4, right? Because it's the next multiplayer update, because it's going to be an evergreen title on Switch 2. And they're like, oh, but we have one more Metroid announcement. Freaking Metroid trailer. Right? And they say it's being made by the creators of Alien.
Oh my god.
Oh!
What? Ridley Scott doing Metroid? No.
Well, not
Ridley
her.
I love Metroid. I like Ridley Scott, but I do not see Ridley Scott.
I saw people dissing Ridley Scott earlier.
I said the creators of Alien, not the actress.
No, like Ridley Scott is the director. But
oh, really?
Yeah. He is, right? Yeah.
Oh, you know, I was confusing.
You're thinking of Daisy Ridley, I think.
Yeah.
The Star Wars.
Yeah, Ripley is the alien
Believe it or not.
main character, right? Is that her name? I don't remember. But anyways,
Ridley is named after someone from the Alien movie. I don't remember who
is the director. Ridley Scott.
There you go. Okay,
yes.
My mistake.
Yeah,
I think.
But I don't know if they'll get such a high profile like person to do that, but someone like who knows their sci-fi stuff could do a good Metroid movie. And I would want it to be live action, and I want them to go all out on it. I don't want them to cut corners with that. I am more excited for a potential Metroid movie than a Zelda movie, because I know they would like mess up too much with Zelda, and I don't want to see them mess around with Zelda too much. I don't know.
Zelda's so scary.
Yeah, I'm very terrified with Zelda because everyone's like,
But also, we thought Mario was scary, and that turned out
yeah.
pretty good.
I talked to a lot of people who want Zelda to be like Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, no, that's not Zelda. No, don't do it. No, that's not Zelda at all. Because people who, I don't know,
I mean,
like, Zelda's not.
their Twilight Princess marketing was inspired from Lord of the Rings. Like the designs from Twilight
Yeah,
Princess were inspired from
but
Lord of the
even
Rings.
Twilight
was
Princess, the
then.
game itself, is not very like, it's
High
not
fantasy.
as high fantasy, dark, gritty, Lord of the Rings, Dark Souls. It's not like that. So I don't want them to do that with a Zelda movie just to like. This might sound bad,
Twilight
but
Princess sounds. It seems kind of close to me. Like, it's not exact. Like Twilight Princess still has its whimsical nature, but there's
yeah,
definitely a lot of it. There's still a
I think-
lot of similar themes there. Like, I mean,
yeah, but I think Twilight Princess is a
you
very
even
good
have
balance
you basically have
with
orcs.
yeah. I think Twilight Princess is a very good balance between a darker Zelda take and a like what still makes Zelda what it is. So I don't know. I was gonna say I don't want them to make it so dark just to bring people into the theaters just to see it. I want them to still retain what makes Zelda what it is and still have
Sure.
that fantasy, whimsical, just kind of.
I don't think Lord of the Rings is that
things.
dark. I think Lord of the Rings has a lot of very comical, humorous, bright
Yeah.
moments too.
Yeah, but it's more.
Do you see it? Do you want
darker
Zelda to be more
kind-
like closer to the Hobbit movies?
I think The Hobbit is a very good comparison versus Lord of the Rings because Lord of the Rings has more of the sinister kind of Mordor stuff with the ring and all that. But the darkest thing in The Hobbit arguably is just Smaug the dragon.
I'm not sure.
I don't
'cause
know.
I don't think Lord of the Rings is that dark.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Maybe
dark, but it has both.
Yeah.
I think Zelda games need that darkness. We need the Demon King. Like we need that darkness there. I don't think we should shy away from that at all. I think The Hobbit might be too lighthearted. Then there needs to, like there can be
like,
lighthearted moments, but it still has to be that. Zelda is about being epic. Zelda's not about it's not a comedy, right? Well, not the classical
I don't
sense
think it's
it
a
is,
comedy
but-
either. But I think that Tears of the Kingdom, Demon King stuff that we saw is very different from like how we see Sauron portrayed in Return of the King or Fellowship of the Ring or something like that. I don't know, just to me.
Yeah, I disagree with that because I actually feel like
Yeah?
that Sauron and the Demon King Ganondorf are both kind of very
Interesting.
devil-like. Like I think it's actually very similar. But
It's also been a very long time since I've watched Lord of the Rings, so I need to.
it's
rewatch
deserving
that.
of a rewatch.
I will say though,
yeah.
when I first watched Lord of the Rings, I was like, oh, this would be cool if Zelda did something like this. But I don't know, I don't feel that way as much anymore. And I don't know why.
I will tell you this, right? I do think that the Zelda movie that we eventually get, it will be a little bit more brighter and cheery than Lord of the Rings overall.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do think it's going to retain still a lot of that epicness because that is part of
Yeah.
what Zelda is.
The
So
most
I think
important
it'll be
thing is
somewhere between the
balance.
Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. If that
It
makes
needs
you feel
that
better.
balance
Yeah.
of whimsical, mystical fantasy with dark, epic grittiness.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 no,
Are we
we're
assuming
on
it's
the
live
same
action
page.
in this scenario?
No live action.
Sadly,
No.
I'm all for live action, but I think Illumination's probably making this Zelda movie,
Yeah.
and I know people are worried about that, but I
Tom
think they're gonna
Holland
do
Link,
fine.
please.
Yeah, we'll see what
Already
happens.
see the
Anyways,
casting. Oh, no.
let's get back to topic though. Yeah, so 3D Mario, like I think that's, I think we all agree that's probably a launch title. I know
If
that
Metroid Prime isn't. It's one of those two, I think, right? I mean,
the Metroid's a little tricky because I feel like there's people suggesting it comes out sooner. But
it really just depends on when the Switch 2 comes out. I mean,
yeah,
you know.
I do think it would be healthy for them to. I mean, Prime Mario's like the day one title, but I think Prime should be close. Like, if not like a month or two before, like a month or two after. Like, I think it's a healthy launch, especially if they want to do the whole multiplayer like thing. Like, I think definitely,
Yeah, replicate what Mario Kart and ARMS were, and Splatoon actually
Yeah.
for the Switch.
yeah,
Multiplayer games one after the other.
yeah. If they may not be doing that direction at all, right?
Sure, yeah.
Right,
Well, I mean, I think, and that's why we can kind of talk about Mario Kart a little bit. I think that's what you have a multiplayer game prep
Yeah.
for that launch window. You have to. Maybe
Right.
it's not necessarily Mario Kart. I think that'd probably be. I don't think Mario Kart would launch the same year as a 3D Mario. I think that'd be the next
I
year.
think it's like
Next spring,
2020,
maybe.
assuming the reports are correct, it's 2025. And maybe the first half, right? Like that. It's not that far off. Like we could be a year and a half away from playing the next new Mario Kart. Like I don't think that's too crazy.
Yeah, I saw someone in chat say they won't announce that so soon because they're still doing Booster Course Pass, but by the time it comes out, it'll be like 2 years removed.
Right. Like we're probably a month away from seeing the last wave. You know, maybe probably won't come out for another 2 to 3 months, but yeah, I think as long as they give us like a year window, we can hear the next Mario Kart. Like I think there'll be a year gap, and we can just move on. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, there's not really much disagreements here. I think we're like, yep, 3D Mario makes sense. It's gonna be amazing, right? So, with that said, though, right, I think we'll just sort of transition. Like, obviously, Mario and Metro are still closely tied to this, but like, let's just go into the Switch 2 stuff because I think that also matters. So I just put the topic on screen. It's gonna say Switch 2 8-inch LCD. But there's other factors involved, but that's one of them. So some of the details that kind of came out after the initial report is an 8-inch LCD and 512 gigabytes of internal storage. Now, what's interesting about this is that this stuff kind of came out from Nate the Hate podcast, but he kind of voiced it as informed speculation. He wasn't super confident on it, right? Because maybe he hasn't heard from enough sources. But Andy Robinson during the VGC podcast backed it up, said that is also what he's hearing. So that's interesting, for a number of reasons. I at first was a little concerned about them going to LCD over OLED, but thinking it over, if it's going to be an 8-inch screen, which is even bigger than the OLED, which is a 7-inch screen, bigger size, probably also gonna be 1080p. Like that's nice, right? And also, who's to say that the LCD won't have an increased color palette and better contrast and brights compared to the initial LCD on Switch in 2017, right? So maybe that color difference, those blacks that we see on an OLED, maybe there won't be that much of a disparity, so they can totally get away with doing a cheaper, yet still bigger, higher resolution 8-inch 1080p LCD for Switch 2, which, by the way, would probably help them differentiate it from the Switch, because that 8-inch screen, it'll look different.
Yeah.
Do you think what do you think the resolution will be?
1080p.
Yeah. Oh,
1080p.
you think so?
8-inch if they're gonna go to 8 inches, I think it's gonna be 1080p. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's more than the Steam Deck. That will be.
The Steam Deck also has an LCD screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's
Also,
900p, I guess, but I mean,
is the Steam
the
Deck
Switch is
also-
900p, so Steam Deck doesn't even have that great
has
of a screen. Like, it's not even
Yeah.
that big.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's also a different aspect ratio, right? It's like 16
Yeah,
by
it's
10?
different. Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
It's not 16 by 9.
Nintendo's not gonna do anything like that. So.
Yeah. 1080p would be a huge thing to do, and that would make sense why they make it LCD instead of OLED. Because
It should be noted though that when some of the insiders have kind of talked about this, that they've kind of talked about from the perspective of going for LCD as a cost saving measure,
yeah.
right? So they can get away with perhaps more internal storage. And I think 512 sounds like a ridiculous number.
You think it's too much?
I think it sounds like too much for a Nintendo. Also, this is flash memory, right? This is not a hard drive. It's different.
Yeah.
It's expensive. I'm a huge proponent of micro SDs. Dude, just go to Amazon right now. You can get like a 512 for like 30-40 bucks.
Yeah.
You can get a terabyte for like 50 bucks.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and there's discounts that you could go if you go on Prime Day, they can get it for even cheaper. And if we're talking about doing this next year, they may be even cheaper. So I just don't.
Storage.
Go on.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to how third parties are talking to them and what they're requesting for this. If they're using their input to design this console, because you think about Call of Duty coming over. I don't think either of you play Call of Duty. Call of Duty currently installed on my PS5 is over 200 gigs.
Oh yeah.
The 512 is the same as the Series S, and I think that's bare minimum for a home console. I think Nintendo probably could get away with 128 or maybe 256, but I imagine at least developers, which I believe is what a lot of these sources are, right?
Yes.
They're probably at least requesting 512. I would think.
Yeah.
For the big AAA third parties.
Bo, just let me tell you, you're gonna give me an aneurysm talking about 200 gigabytes for a single game. Oh my god. But yeah,
It's rough.
I know, right? Like I have a
like,
PlayStation, I have a PC. I
massive.
know how big they can get. You know, if you're talking about 4K gaming, like that's a whole other level. So
Yeah.
maybe they do 256.
Yeah.
At least 128. I think that makes sense. And something else.
I mean, that's
to
like the
consider,
baseline, right?
Yeah. Something else to consider if Nintendo wants their consumers to kind of more and more transition to digital gaming. I mean, you know, like not buying things digitally instead of physically.
They need
More
the
internal
space for
storage
that, yeah.
does kind of help that. Like, while yes, functionally it's cheap and easy just to get a micro SD card that can store a lot, flash memory is faster. And for the casual, right, that, you know, right out of the box, you know, if it makes sense to kind of, if you already have that much internal storage, you can maybe download games more liberally. So it does make sense from that perspective. It's just prior Nintendo has always been very they've always been very skimpy about
Yeah.
putting on internal storage, but the times are changing. Digital gaming was not as important as it is now, right? Then especially now with Nintendo really wanting to find a way to trying to combat hackers and leakers, right? Like, because games get leaked. I'm not talking about rumors. I'm talking about like games getting leaked. You know, Nintendo doesn't want that to happen. If games are just all digital, that won't happen. Oh, of course, as long as there's some cartridges out there.
Color splash situation.
Oh, you know,
Oh.
it happens less often.
That was incredible.
It happens
yeah.
less often. Cartridges make it a lot easier to get things leaked. Now, obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but another thing that's been said is that it's still going to take cartridges, which is great. And it's still going to be portable, or it's going to have a port. It's going to be like a Switch. It's going to have both options. That's all great. But there still will be cartridges on Switch too. So you don't, even if more people are buying digital, you only need one person to get a cartridge to leak it, right? So like it'll still happen, but Nintendo wants to move in a direction where they can get away from that eventually. Is the point? Like, which I don't love the idea of going all digital. Even though I buy most of my games digitally, I do like having that option to collect things. So if we do go in that direction, I hope they kind of have something that we can still collect. Maybe just focus more on amiibos or something. But
I think they could do what they're doing with like Pikmin and Metroid, do digital first and then physical a little later. But also
for brand new games,
yeah, that would
be. I don't know about
the
that.
only reason they would want to do that is to combat the leaks and the people like leaking things out weeks in advance.
That would kind of work, but also by how much, right? Because like Tears of the Kingdom was leaked how much in advance? Like a month?
No, a week.
It was
A week or two.
It was 2 weeks.
I think I had it 10 days early.
Okay.
I think I was.
It was a
around
week or
there.
two.
Yeah.
Xenoblade 2 was 2 weeks. I remember I had the entire soundtrack on my phone 2 weeks before the game came out.
I mean, I guess I would be okay with that. Like I usually end up buying games digitally anyway, so I'm like, oh damn it, it's midnight. I can't go to a store to get it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I see the benefits for and against, but
right.
I do see the industry going more in the digital.
Little by little, right? They make more money, less leaking.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of games, a lot of like big games coming out like soon are going to be all digital. Like the
Alan
new
Wake.
Yakuza game and what's that? Alan Wake are going to be all digital. No
Sucks.
physical at all. Yeah.
I think Nintendo's still further off from that. Like
Yeah.
I don't think any major first party games on Switch 2 will be digital only. Maybe some like Metroid Prime remastered tier stuff, but I mean even just them doing Pikmin 1 and 2 HD as a physical release, I think if anything shows their commitment to the people that buy physical games. And I'm not sure the exact numbers for Switch versus like PS5 and Xbox, but the split for digital on PS5 and Xbox is way lower. Way like I think it's like 80% of people buy digitally now. It's like not even close. But for Switch, it's a lot closer to half and half, I believe. So I think at least for the next generation we'll be safe in terms of having most first party games at least physically.
Yeah.
They could do a delayed week release though, just to avoid leaking, which would be unfortunate.
I just I mean, it's tough. It's so tough. I don't think they're gonna do that because they haven't done it, but we'll see. It would solve that problem though. So, but then you have another problem of people being pissed that we have to wait an extra 2 weeks for the physical version.
Well, then my dumbass would buy it twice.
There you go. Yeah, I mean,
I did that for Metroid. I bought that twice.
And what's interesting about that is that could help them make potentially could help them make more money. And what happens is that people might call Nintendo scummy for it. They're like, oh no, we're doing this because we don't want the games to get leaked. And it's like a good reason to do it right, like so it's tough. But we've I don't know, but just about like Switch 2 stuff. Something else that's come up that's kind of interesting is there's a rumor out there. This is coming from Zippo, so Assault. I don't even know if Assault. Let's take it with a mound of.
Well, before you get
disgust.
into it,
And
at a certain point, I think in like 2019, 2020, I completely like dropped out of like the Nintendo rumor sphere. I was just too busy with work and stuff.
Yeah.
Wasn't Zippo at one point reliable? I swear, back in like 20, I swear I remember that name actually meaning something. Am I crazy? Was that never the case?
It's
Zippo
I think
was-
Zippo is like the most
yeah.
debatable one.
Did he
Zippo
maybe
was
guess some
often
Smash
talked
characters?
about in 2021, I remember he predicted a handful of things. But the thing about Zippo that I've realized from a lot of people is Zippo says a lot of very safe predictions and puts them out as leaks. And he's like, oh, look, it got confirmed because, like, it was... But it's always, like, a safe prediction. He was like, oh, 2D Mario will happen. Oh, Tears of the King... Or Breath of the Wild 2 will be released in this window. Or, like, what else did he say? I think the
I would
biggest
love to
thing
go to
that
Zippo's blog and
Yeah,
kind of
blog,
backtrack
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
actually.
the biggest thing that Zippo leaked, which no one really guessed, was not even a Nintendo thing. It was Persona 4 Arena Ultimax getting re-released with the Persona 25th
Oh, that's random.
anniversary. Yeah, and like no one cares about Persona 4 Arena.
Yeah.
And
Well, actually, I think the most recent thing he had said was it was right after Puro said there was going to be
Yeah.
a remake of an SNES game. He immediately made a post about Chrono Trigger. Immediately.
yes, it was Chrono Trigger, and I was like, it's not gonna be.
But maybe
Yeah.
he does have some sources. I mean, it is possible
Yeah.
with the Persona 4 Ultimax thing.
Yeah, that was the craziest one. I was like, Arena Ultimax is the last thing you would expect from a Persona 25th anniversary. You would expect them to put Persona 4 Golden on all platforms, which they did later, but like Arena Ultimax is super random.
Yeah.
So if that's a lucky guess, then that was a very, very lucky guess for him.
I think I'm looking at an old Zippo
Are you seeing
blog.
his
He
blog?
said no Generation 9 in 2022. That's wrong. I also remember him predicting Mario Kart 10, but
Yeah.
we got
Oh,
Booster Course
yeah, that
Pass
was
instead.
him.
Or
Yeah, so that's a couple hard.
he talked
Yeah.
about Donkey Kong in 2021 as well, I think.
Yeah, but
I think
Well,
he-
I
uh,
actually haven't heard this most recent rumor. I'm excited to hear what you say.
oh, basically that's gonna be the Switch 2 is gonna be $399,
Oh,
$400.
that's a bold bet. Crazy.
Is it?
No.
No, okay, you're being sarcastic.
think-
It took me a second,
Yeah.
but yeah,
no.
yeah.
I mean,
think
if-
that's a
if they
reasonable
drop-
price.
I think I heard the disappointment. You were
Yeah.
like, you were hoping for something more juicy, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I actually, honestly, I don't even think I read the Zippo blog on it. I think I just, like, let me see if I can actually read what he said. If someone, I'm trying to find it, it's like not all in one place. Zippo 39, Switch 2.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel about a lot of these rumors that came out of VGC and Grub. And I mean, I know it's not necessarily reports in some cases, but 3D Mario being a launch title, backwards compatible, 512 storage, like that's not that exciting.
Yeah, okay,
Because
so,
it's like, okay, these are easily guessable things, right? The only interesting thing so far for me really has been the LCD screen, which makes a lot of sense
yeah.
from a cost perspective.
Yeah, we'll see on that one. And because it also maybe it's just a dev unit version or something.
True. Yeah.
So let me read this report. This blog from Zippo real quick. Let's see if there's anything juicy from it. So we're finally here. All right. So he just kind of summarizing the Switch 2 reports from Eurogamer and Video Games Chronicle. Fall 2024 release. That's about 7.5 years after Switch release. That makes perfect amount of sense. Check. Probably launching with a brand new 3D Mario. Check. Nintendo going back to LCD screens in order to keep costs down. Check.
Was this after VGC?
Yes, he's summarizing it, right?
Oh, okay.
Speaking of which, I can finally let this one out of the bag. I've been sitting on the information for about a month, and I can finally let it out now as it seems like the perfect time for it. Without further ado, $399. That's the apparent golden number for Switch 2 pricing that I've been told by numerous sources familiar with what's going on at Nintendo. In fact, this is a first for me. Instead of paraphrasing sources like I've done since I started this, I'll let you hear that from the horse's mouth. We'll call this particular source Chuck. Here's what they told me. $399. That's the golden number that they've have in mind. It's a price that works in terms of power of their new system. It's the price that works for them making a decent profit, and it's the price that they think works for the audience that they're trying to maintain. No more, no less. So there you have it. The Switch is coming out next fall. It's going back to an LCD screen, and I'm independently hearing that it's probably going to cost around $400. We'll be hearing more about this in the coming weeks and months. The madness begins again. All right, so that's pretty much it. I
think Fortune makes a lot of sense, honestly.
Well,
I mean, yeah.
First, I agree with the reasoning. I just don't know if this is an actual insider.
Sure. Yeah. No.
Yeah. So that's where
and prices can change too. I mean, this might be a little too early to have a price in mind, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know.
His wording seems like something like that whole blog post sounds like something anyone could have written. I don't know.
It does.
Yeah. Like,
but I mean, he's writing with the assumption that people trust him.
Yeah.
So
he might actually know Chuck. Chuck might exist. Who knows?
He maybe.
Michael Chuck from Nintendo.
I mean,
yeah.
I had a friend who worked at Nintendo, who was an uncle/aunt of somebody, not mine, but somebody. Because most people.
I think 400 makes a lot of sense, especially if there's more of a cross-gen period here, like Pokemon coming to Switch after the Switch 2 comes out. Maybe you drop the OLED to 300, then there's a nice $100 gap in between them, or maybe even discontinue the OLED and just have the base Switch for 250. It's possible.
How much?
If any of them get discontinued, I would say it's a base Switch and not the OLED. The OLED's their best-selling SKU. Like, yeah.
Is it the best selling right now? Okay,
oh, it is. Yeah.
How much?
I was thinking about the PS4 Pro, which did not do very well. But
yeah.
Okay. How much was the Wii U MSRP? What was that?
Initial launch?
300 or 350 with Nintendo Land.
The 32 gigabyte Nintendo Land was 350.
Yeah.
Okay.
The bundle everybody bought was 350.
Yeah, I think eventually they kind of sort of price drop to 300 eventually, but yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I think they could go to 400 because 450. Actually 400 itself is the price of a digital PS5. So I always thought about that. Like, I put that into perspective. I was like, 500 is the price of a disc PS5. 400 is the price of a digital PS5.
Correct.
Series S is 300.
Yeah, Series S has dropped in price.
But people don't want the Series S. People don't want the digital PS5. They want the powerful versions, right?
I'm just saying, no, here's the thing. PS5 digital is the same number, same level of power as a disc PS5. It just doesn't have the disc drive. So I'm wondering, I think 400 works. I think 400 is a good price point, but with that in mind, with consumers having something like that in mind, will what the Switch 2, the Switch 2's power, specs, features, improvements, will it be enough to justify that price? I think it will. But
I mean, if they're still paying 350 for the OLED, which is already outdated, just with a nice screen, then I think 400 isn't even. Really
yeah. And they definitely won't go up to 500. I don't think they will.
Yeah. So I had a little bit of a debate with Nintendo Prime last week on his podcast, and he was arguing that the Switch 2 could go as low as $300.
Oh no!
Which I vehemently disagreed, and he was arguing that knowing that was definitely the minority perspective, right? But just to kind of bring up some counter arguments, right, that were presented, let's ask ourselves, right? Is $400 something that can hit the mainstream the way the Switch has?
think so. I mean, the PS5 is doing great, so
Yeah, PS5 is doing great.
Not as great as the Switch,
especially.
though. I mean, it's doing good now overall, but
in
like,
America, it's usually doing better outside of Tears of the Kingdom exceptions there.
but you know, but
In
that's
Japan, of course, it's
but,
not.
But Switch is on its way out, right? Like it's doing well for how long it's been out. But you know, like if the Switch is doing the numbers it's doing now, and back in 2018, 2019, it wouldn't be as successful, you know.
How are PS5 numbers now compared to like 2018, 2019 Switch sales?
Ooh, that's a good
Comparable?
question.
I have to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know offhand, and
Yeah.
like that's just a hypothetical.
Well, I mean,
question
Switch peaked in
because-
2020 because of COVID.
Yeah. But even before that, it was still doing very well. Like, it
Yes.
didn't take it very long to outsell the Wii U. I mean, that's not a very high bar to pass, though.
No, I mean,
19.1 million PS5s were sold last fiscal year for PlayStation.
Wow.
that's strong.
So I'm not,
That's
that's pretty
pretty good.
high. Yeah.
I think Nintendo sold about 18 million last year Switches. So
Hmm.
that's pretty good. And Intel's projecting 15 million this year.
And they'll definitely pass that.
I hope.
You think so?
I hope.
They sold 4 million in one quarter. They're definitely gonna pass that.
They sold 4 million in one quarter with Tears of the Kingdom OLED. And
Yep.
Tears of the Kingdom. So
And Mario Wonder could easily sell better than that. I
Maybe.
think their expectations are way too low. Honestly.
well, I mean, we'll see.
I think they could
We'll see.
approach. I think they could approach 20. Honestly.
If they did
Of course,
that, it'd be amazing.
it depends on what their Q1 software is for the calendar Q1, of course, and if they have more bundles and special editions.
Yeah,
and all
it's
that.
all reliant on the software.
Well, I guess the thing is
Yeah.
that like, I think we agree that Q2 and Q4 are going to be weaker than Q1 and Q3, right? So,
Sure.
Well,
Q3 would be strong because that's holiday.
correct, totally,
for the
right,
calendar. Yeah.
right. But like, is it going to be strong enough? Because if they average, you said they sold 4 million for Q1.
I believe that was maybe 3.91 for
All
Q1.
right, so
for
if you
Switch.
multiply that by 4, that puts them at about a little over 15 million.
Yeah.
Right. So which is what they're forecasting. And I would say Q1 is at least going to be their second best quarter. So Q3 has to really kill it if they're gonna exceed that forecast, is my perspective. All right. I mean, selling 15 million at this stage of the game is incredible, you know. So we'll see.
I'm trying to see what they sold last Q3 when Pokemon launched. Of course, that was when Pokemon launched.
Yeah,
So it's a little different.
yeah, that's a huge one. I mean, but Mario Bros.
Yeah.
Wonder is gonna be big.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna have buy Switch big, but if they put up, the other thing is that like they improve Switch sales because of that Tears of the Kingdom OLED, right? Like that improves Switch sales a lot. Are they gonna have an OLED for Mario Bros. Wonder? I don't know.
I don't know if that's like a. See, that's weird because you're right. Like Tears of the Kingdom is a system seller, and Mario Bros. Wonder will sell comparably to Tears of the Kingdom, if not better. But I don't know if they do hardware for that kind of game.
Yeah,
They did a bundle for Odyssey. Like there
we
was
would
just a
have
red
known
bundle.
about
yeah.
the OLED at this point, I think.
They announced the Tears of the Kingdom one like a month in advance, so they could save it for September Direct. I checked last Q3, so when Pokemon Scarlet and Violet came out, they sold 8.5 million Switches. So that's a lot. So if they can replicate even close to like 7 million this holiday, that puts us right at 11. And then yeah, I think 15 is a little too low. I think like 16, 17.
We won't know the answer to this until
We'll see. Yeah.
Like what?
February, or I guess really next
We won't.
April.
Even later,
full year.
because we won't get the numbers until
Or no, it's
summer.
May. You're right. It's early May. It's early May.
We're not gonna
For
know
the
for like
full
another like
result.
9 months.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because we have to wait like 3 months after it all ends to.
You're right. Yeah.
learn. We'll see. Either way, you know, still good. But
They're doing good.
yeah. I think we're ready to kind of to wrap things up though. Just kind of get to the chat. Is there anything you guys want to address before we just check in with the chat and close things out?
I don't think so.
Not really.
All right, I'll keep my mouth shut about Xenoblade. Yeah. Actually, all right. So guys, this is kind of like a a wind down topic. So any last questions? You can at me, super chats, or whatever. Get to it now. We'll close out with some Q&A.
Fact that Xenoblade 3 is better than Tears of the Kingdom.
No. Oh, hey, I love
It's a
Xenoblade.
topic
I
for-
love Xenoblade.
I might. That's a video topic I've been having in my mind for a while, because the whole idea was like, ever since I played both, ever since I finished Future Redeemed and finished Tears of the Kingdom, I'm like, which one do I like better? Which one is my favorite Switch game? And I don't know.
Oh, if you count Future Redeemed, that's close for me.
Yeah.
Dang.
I still am. I'm leaning more on the Xenoblade 3 side, even not like.
Yeah.
counting Future
But you're very much like Brandon. You're a lot more story oriented. You really care about story. Story is more
No,
important
the
to you
thing
than
is,
gameplay.
I wasn't like that until I played like a lot of Xenoblade.
Yeah.
I was always like, oh, gameplay is what makes the game, and I still think so. I still think like gameplay is the core of a game, but I think Xenoblade does everything right. It has good gameplay, has really good story,
yeah.
has really good music, really good exploration. So I think it hits on all the things.
Xenoblade 3 is
I'll
my
sing-
favorite game last year.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, I didn't play Elden Ring, so but
I still don't understand. Like, I played Elden Ring for like 120 hours or whatever. I still couldn't tell you the story of Elden Ring.
no, that's
and
that's
that
how it
is-
is.
Software story
Yeah.
writing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was the storytelling of Breath of the Wild, but to such an extreme that I was so like disinterested in the story. But I don't know.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, what I want to talk about though is not
Yeah.
your opinion of Xenoblade versus Zelda, which you're totally entitled to your opinion.
Yeah.
They're both amazing games. What I want to talk about is just kind of like some games, like the games we're going to see in 2024 and beyond, from kind of based off what we're learning,
yeah.
right? Because based off all this stuff, I'm starting to get. I'm building opinions, right? My opinions are building for the 2024 and beyond.
And we don't know much about 2024 games from Nintendo.
I feel like we already know about basically like 6.
So what we know, Peach, the Peach game.
Yes.
We know Luigi's Mansion remaster.
Yes.
Metroid, assuming.
Metroid Prime 4.
Comes out next
Possibly Metroid.
It's starting to feel like a safe assumption.
F-Zero GX maybe.
Yeah,
It's
you're
next year.
correct. That's another.
Fire Emblem 4.
Fire Genealogy of the Holy War. Yes.
Yes, that's 5.
3D Mario if it's a launch title.
That's 6. That's actually at least
6.
7.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
I actually made a list a
next
couple
year's
days ago.
Pokemon game,
There's
yeah.
a lot for
There's-
Switch 1, I
there's-
think, next year still.
There's also something else. Donkey Kong.
Mario Party will happen. next year.
Oh,
yeah.
Donkey Kong.
Well, I don't know
yes.
if it comes out next year, but I think we have to learn about Donkey Kong by next year at the latest, because the Donkey Kong expansion is set to open next year, and I think the whole idea is to do cross promotion. I don't see how your first expansion to Super Nintendo World is Donkey Kong, and you don't have a brand new Donkey Kong game.
Yeah.
So
I think we could hear about it as early as this September. In the
Totally.
Direct.
totally. Now.
You think it's a Switch 1 game?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to feel about the Donkey Kong game. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
All those rumors.
It wasn't
Also,
3D team making a 2D game, right? Is that the rumor?
That thing that was
Weird.
I think that part of the rumor was,
Was
a
that?
little bogus.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Right. So
I-
my understanding of
one more
Donkey Kong is
thing
we just
is-
don't know what it is.
Yeah.
We know that so this is a part I've said before. I think it's important, but it's maybe a little easy to misunderstand, especially if I say it poorly. But there was rumors I talked about a few months ago that were related to Activision having worked on a Donkey Kong project that has been canceled. But that Donkey Kong project was codenamed Donkey Kong Freedom and was an open world Donkey Kong game. And there's actually a lot of fan made footage on it because they heard about it and they were inspired from it, so they made that. But that project was canceled. However, Nintendo supposedly loved what they were doing. It was greenlit. And after that project was canceled, because Activision went through a lot of changes, right? Around that time, they then they pivoted. And Nintendo's like, all right, we're going to take Donkey Kong in-house and we're going to make it ourselves.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I think that story is important is because they were very excited about the open world Donkey Kong project. And then after it was canceled, they decided to make it themselves. I don't think that means it's going to be an open world Donkey Kong game. But what I do think that suggests is that we don't know what it is. I think people making the assumption it's just gonna be another Donkey Kong Country game. Then why isn't Retro Studios making it? So, I mean, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is like the ideal country game.
I don't want it to be 2D. I want it to either be like isometric or full-on 3D. Because the only 3D Donkey Kong we've had is Donkey Kong 64, and that was not very well received. So I think this is their redemption for 3D Donkey Kong.
Yeah. I love those ideas. I'm not gonna say that's what it is. I'm just saying I expect that what they're gonna do is gonna be something a little bit different than what's been done before. I don't think it makes sense to have Nintendo EPD work on it and just do what's already been done.
And like we said, a lot of franchises get the second wind when they just do something new and change things up. So I kind of want to see that with Donkey Kong as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been kind of theorizing, maybe most people wouldn't like this, but I think it'd be pretty cool. If EPD is not doing it, and if Retro's obviously not doing a Donkey Kong game, maybe get a good feel on like a stylized 2D Donkey Kong, more relaxing for the kiddos. I think that'd be good.
Like not
like
3D,
not necessarily like a 2D Donkey Kong, but like using their craft aesthetic or yarn aesthetic, whichever one they want to.
Oh,
some sort of aesthetic like that.
Maybe like a
I think
painting
it'd be
or
a
something.
cool. Sure, yeah. Because you're right. If they call it Donkey Kong Country, that'd just be kind of weird if it's not Retro making it. So I think if they do an entirely new sub-series of like 2D Donkey Kong games or a 3D game, I mean that's probably the ideal scenario here. But
and there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of different examples. Yeah. I do want to get a chat. There's some people are kind of asking some stuff about this that I think would be relevant, but I'll also just kind of throw this one last little detail out there, because I put a pin on this earlier. Xenoblade X, right? I think that's kind of like an ideal game to come out on Switch in its final years. It's kind of like I think we're gonna enter that 3DS territory. I actually I counted this out. So I looked at the last 2 years of published Nintendo titles on 3DS, and I counted, and I saw there was 10 games amounting to about 40% of their lineup that was some combination of remasters, demakes, ports of some sort. So it's like Mario Party 100, which is like a compilation of old Mario Party games, or WarioWare Gold as well. Samus Returns, the Mario and Luigi games. There's 2 remakes.
Fire Emblem Echoes,
Luigi's Mansion Echoes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that the last couple of years of Switch are going to be. I mean, we already see a lot now, but I think once Switch 2 is announced, there's going to be a lot of that. So things like Xenoblade X, a lot of GameCube remasters. We're going to see a lot of stuff like that.
And the thing about Xenoblade X is, I think in 2018 or 2019, Takahashi was saying that the only reason Xenoblade X isn't happening on the Switch is because it's just going to be a very expensive project. And ever since then, Monolith Soft has doubled, almost tripled in size. They've had really, really good earnings and profits. They had a 97% profit increase or something this year or something. There was very good financial news from Monolith Soft. I don't remember exactly
also
what
raised
happened.
their salaries by 40% or something.
They raised their salaries. Everything is going good for them. I think they're in a position to release a Xenoblade X port. I think it is something they have been working on, dabbling in. Hopefully it's released next year.
I also feel like they might have expansion content with it too.
Yes, because no spoilers because I haven't beaten it yet.
The way the story for X leaves off,
a cliffhanger.
there's so they could either do a sequel or have epilogue story, one or the other.
Yes, and another thing that I would like to see, related to Xenoblade X, is of course, do add a future connected kind of epilogue to that, but I don't know if this will be next year or the year after or sometime, but I think Xenosaga Trilogy will eventually get ported over to Switch because of I think they need to get Xenosaga back in the modern populace with Xenoblade fans and
there are very clear reasons to believe it's going to happen.
Yes. I would love to see a remaster of that. I would play it. Yeah.
Before their next project, that's all I'll say. Before their next project, they need Xenosaga remasters. That's all I'll say.
I'm all for it.
Because Monolith Soft's next project, I don't see it happening anytime soon. I don't think it's going to be announced anytime soon. But that new IP,
That's
I
also a
want to
Switch
see
2
that
title. I totally
new
believe that
IP.
that new IP is like a big deal. Maybe a
Yeah.
lot of like
That's
MMO
definitely
like
Switch 2,
qualities.
yeah.
Switch
Yeah.
2. It's
I
gonna
think
be amazing.
I think it's going to be like a massive Switch 2 MMO.
We're on the same
That's what I
page.
think.
We're on the same
Yeah.
page. Yeah.
But I also think for 2024 release, I think Tears of the Kingdom DLC could be next year, 2024.
They
If
could even
they do
announce it in the
DLC.
September Direct.
Yeah.
Right? They could.
I
If it has
think
the
they
same
would-
timeline as Pokemon's DLC, they could announce it in September and it's relevant throughout next year. That could
Still
help.
torn on
That could be
DLC
the
for
kind
that
of
game.
thing that they use to help
Mhm.
us wait for Switch 2. You know? So that's something to consider.
A lot of people are saying there will not be Tears of the Kingdom DLC because it hasn't been announced yet, but I think they would be fools to not have Tears of the Kingdom DLC with how many copies they've sold, with how many people are talking about the game, with the buzz at the Game Awards and all that. I think they need DLC. For that
It
game.
feels like money that would be leaving on the table, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've suggested that I think they're just saving the DLC for Switch 2. You know, so we'll see.
With a performance patch, hopefully.
A performance patch, just a graphics update.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
No, performance meaning like upscale graphics, 60 FPS on.
Oh
Switch
yeah,
2.
we're on the same page. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess people like to prefer Scarlet and Violet as a performance patch rather than a graphics update, and it's just like connotation, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I think Tears of the Kingdom is great, but obviously, you know, if it had a solid frame rate, bro, if they gave it a 60 FPS mode, oh, you know.
Yeah.
If they had DLC that had like, you know, new quests and better graphic, like it would be so cool. But let's get
Yeah.
to the chat. There's some questions here I want to get to. So let's see. Lex, how you doing? Les asks, do you think they'll do another Kirby like Forgotten Land in the future, next few years? 110%. Kirby the Forgotten Land is the best-selling Kirby game of all time. It was very well received. It would be a travesty of justice. It would be a travesty of everyone with a business degree. It would be a travesty of just everything that is good to not have another Kirby game like Forgotten Land. That was an incredible game. If there's one game that there's my two favorite games last year, Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Those were the two best games last year. So good. I just don't see how they wouldn't. You know, like how do you know, that
They have to. I mean, something interesting is they never did a single update for Forgotten Land. Star Allies they did patches for.
Yeah.
And I mean, Return to Dreamland Deluxe is a port, but Forgotten Land didn't get a single patch. Still on 1.0. That's weird. So I think they're definitely working on a sequel to that for.
I mean, that game
for
was
the next
perfect.
console.
That game was perfect.
Yeah, it's a perfect game. I do wonder if in the September Direct we get another spinoff though. They like to have these Kirby games every 6 months. It feels like. So there's probably maybe like a free to play game or something.
Sure, totally. Yep. In terms of when Forgotten Land would coming, Forgotten Land came out. I mean, we'd probably have to wait. A couple years.
2025, 2026. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they take their time.
They do turn them out pretty quickly, I will say. So it could be 2025, but that's probably too soon.
Well, I mean, if Switch 2 comes out, I mean, that's good timing in terms of being out early on a system. I'll point out that they had Kirby Star Allies in the second year of Switch, or the first full year of Switch, however you choose to look at it.
It was like right at the 12-month mark, yeah. I think it was March of 2018.
Yeah, so like getting out a Kirby game in the first full year of Switch 2, that's really, especially if it's something like Forgotten Land.
Kirby has almost been
It's so
annual
good.
releases, right? As well.
Yeah.
Sometimes
definitely.
twice a year. I mean,
Yeah.
if you count like the spin-offs and free-to-play stuff,
Yeah.
they
there's
go
a lot.
crazy with it.
They do go crazy. Yeah, there's no break for Kirby. Kirby is the strongest Nintendo character. Not it like lore wise, like Kirby's like a black hole. It's just crazy.
Canonically, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. Samuel talks about games. What makes Bo think Switch 2 is early 2025? Yeah, what do you think, Bo? Like, I mean, you kind of touched on it earlier. I mean, and you've acknowledged that you know it's possible, so they could happen sooner. But like, what's the sticking point for you? You mentioned sales earlier.
Well, that sales report definitely helped solidify what I believe for Switch 2, because it is doing so well. That first quarter is above their expectations for sales for the Switch. But also even before that, just looking at the software lineup, how well software's doing, Tears of the Kingdom, and even stuff like Scarlet and Violet and Splatoon 3 breaking records. But I just look at what happened with COVID, and I just feel like, I know people are always saying, oh, they have to release it, they can't wait for a stopgap, they have to keep the momentum. I don't think there's anything suggesting the momentum's going to stop before early 2025. We're talking about games that could come out next year. You already listed out a bunch. I think something like maybe instead of Xenoblade X, we get Xenoblade Warriors. And these are, yes, smaller games, but I feel like there's still plenty of juice in the cannon. And if next year is mostly ports, then that does still lead in nicely to early 2025. And when I say early 2025, I'm not saying like May or June. I'm saying March, which is a 4-month difference. It's not like I'm saying it's going to be drastically apart. I mean, that is pretty close still. I just feel like they could still have a very strong holiday season next year.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, people keep saying, oh, they're going to mimic what they did with the Switch in terms of the hardware. Why not mimic the release strategy? I mean, that works so well for them. Plus, you look at rumors saying the PS5 Pro is going to come out next November. Now, I know Nintendo doesn't really care typically, but that still would eat in a little bit. So why not release it in March? Get all the taxpayers, or, getting their income tax, get them to buy it, have that year full of releases, and then have the holiday season hit with 3D Mario.
Yeah.
It worked so well the first time. I'm not saying they won't do it again, or I'm not saying they won't release it in 2024, but that strategy was flawless. So I fail to see a reason they need to rush it out next year, honestly.
So, not that I think there needs to be a counter argument, but just because I can, right?
It's a podcast.
Yeah, right, exactly. Opinions, right? So, something interesting, there's a few things. When we take a look at the VGC and Eurogamer reports, right? They're kind of corroborating each other's stories. Something that's discussed is that it's basically implied that the manufacturing, right? Like, they could, in theory, release a Switch 2 early next year, right? But they're trying to stockpile on enough units so they can meet demand when it does launch, right? So, and I just say that, right, because you're arguing early 2025, but if you play the optimistic end, right, they could, in theory, based off the reports, it's kind of suggesting that if Nintendo wanted to, they could release it in early 2024, but they probably won't because it's better to wait, have the right lineup, have enough hardware saved, and just wait for the right time. And I think that's probably maybe the most important thing that I want to note here is just that I think where Nintendo's at, and this doesn't even necessarily bode well for my argument or yours, it depends, but just that Nintendo has a luxury of being able to wait and save their products for when they think is the right time to put them out. And that comes down to games and hardware. They because they are enjoying good sales across the board, they don't have to be in a rush. They're not relying on their next release to make or break their business, right? Unlike other companies, Nintendo's a company that's recommending other companies to wait. Like Nintendo told Ubisoft, hey,
yeah,
you should save Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. And now Ubisoft regrets that they released it when they did. But Ubisoft probably doesn't have the same luxuries that Nintendo does. So that's kind of like something I kind of keep in mind. And maybe to that end, right? Like I said, it doesn't necessarily bode well for either. It kind of depends on how you interpret things. But my point is that based off not just the reports, but also even hearing from like Money DJ, which does financial reports for different manufacturers in Japan. We've had multiple financial reports from them about different companies like Foxconn and Pixart. And from the manufacturing process, it sounds like they're even suggesting an early first half of the 2024 release schedule. But I think, it's better to trust developers than manufacturers because they can just have those things sitting on shelves, as the VGC and Eurogame reports suggest, right? So, like, because of all that different stuff, like, I'm definitely, like, very rooted in 2024. But I also, I think it should be acknowledged that we never really know what's going to happen, So,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're
So,
very unpredictable.
right.
And I will say, I will be very, very happy to be wrong. As much as I love the Switch, and as much as I think the software output's been great the past couple of years, especially 2022, I think is the best year of the console in terms of first-party stuff. Look at me.
He's got a lineup.
I will be very happy to buy a new Nintendo console that's more powerful, has a better, I'll be very happy if it releases
And
sooner.
based off that, I'm sure you're hoping it's gonna be backwards compatible too.
If this console is not backwards compatible, somebody's gonna die. There's gonna be an issue here.
Oh man. Apparently third parties don't want Nintendo to go to
Now I saw that because they want to be able to resell them to schmucks like me.
Like I think that's Ubisoft pissed off about Spark's Hope not selling, so they want to be able to resell it on Switch 2. But if it's backwards compatible,
it has to be. I mean, just with Furukawa's comments on like making it a smooth transition or whatever.
Yeah, I think something's got to give, right? Like we could say, hey, we want them to transfer over our Nintendo accounts, which is already confirmed that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Backwards compatibility is another layer, which we're all hoping for, but there's also like cross-gen. I think that cross-gen. I think I'm kind of giving up on that a little. Like there's gonna be some in maybe like the beginning, and like remasters and stuff, but like a lot of like the main Nintendo projects, like after the first year, no. Like, and I also think 3D Mario is gonna be an exclusive to Switch 2.
So are you set on Prime 4 being just a Switch 1 title and not having anything to do with Switch 2?
I mean, I think
is that yeah.
I don't that like I said, I think the first year is gonna have some cross-gen stuff. Or things that'll be positioned to benefit. Like there will be games. It depends on how how they're kind of doing everything, right? But like I think there will be games that will come out for Switch, but it can be played on Switch 2, and perhaps look and run a little bit better. And I think that's gonna be Pokemon. I think it's gonna be Metroid Prime 4. I think it's gonna be Tears of the Kingdom. There will be games relevant that people will buy that will be playing on Switch 2, even though they came out for Switch. But there will be. But I think they're gonna launch it with 3D Mario as an exclusive. And I don't think they're going to do the Sony thing anymore. Like, I think if Switch 2 is coming out maybe this year, then I'd be like, yeah, they're going to do the Sony thing. But I think the longer they wait, the more sense it makes to kind of just, have a little bit more of a harder cut. Which is going to be still a softer cut compared to prior generations.
But, and I think Super Metal Dave made this argument when I was on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Why make that cut when your software was breaking records? PS4 software was slowing down, and they still kept doing that.
I agree, but it's gonna be backwards compatible. I'm talking about like new games being exclusive or not. Like that's what.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
I still don't know though. I mean, we're both in agreement. Pokemon's gonna be Switch 1 no matter what.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
But then 3D. Yeah. I agree that 3D Mario would be exclusive. So yeah. We agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, even Sony released Jack and Daxter, which is kind of like or Ratchet and Clank. I'm sorry, kind of. Ratchet and Clank early on for PS5 as an exclusive, right? It was one of their few exclusives early on. That's basically like they're kind of like their Mario, right? Just less sales potential. I mean, if I think about it, like I think Metroid Prime 4 and the Pokemon game, which are both coming out next year, which are going to be really big releases next year, they're both going to be for Switch. So there's not going to be maybe a lot of exclusives. I don't know. It depends what Nintendo's lineup is, right? Yeah, it's
September Direct's going to be very telling for when the next console comes out. I think if there's a lot of new stuff announced in the Direct, plus Peach Gang gets a title, Dark Moon gets a date, Fire Emblem remake,
I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff announced. I just think it depends on what's announced.
Right, the scale of what's announced.
Exactly.
For the Switch. Yeah.
Right.
If it's mostly ports, then 2024 is gonna look more likely. But if there's some big like a Donkey Kong game announced, I think that hurts 2024's chances for a Switch 2.
I don't know. I'll say this, like if they say Metroid Prime 4 is if they confirm Metroid Prime 4 is like a first half release, that to me is gonna be like, all right, so that is the last big Switch title, as Andy Robinson said, and then the second half, that's Switch 2, Yeah. Another interesting thing that I'll just point out, right? Because like you've argued, right? Like you think maybe early 2025, which is only like 4 months away, but that's with the assumption it would come out in November. I don't think it's coming out in November.
That is a good point.
I don't think it's coming out in November. I think the latest we see Switch 2 is October. Because I think theoretically they could launch Switch 2 in October, which they have a history of launching subsystems in October with 3D Mario, which also has a history of coming out in October, and then Pokemon historically comes out in November.
What systems have come out in October?
OLED.
I'm actually not sure.
OLED. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry,
more so about
version.
it's more so about the Mario games. Odyssey 2017, Mario Wonder this year. That
Sure.
I
Mario
know.
Party even.
Yeah. But
Usually October,
that's a
yeah.
good point. But it's more so about Pokemon. Like I believe for a fact there's a mainline Pokemon game coming out next year, and I would assume November. Maybe not,
Yeah.
right? But I would assume November. And given that, I would think this is about to come up before that. So the latest I expected is October. That's my perspective.
Interesting.
Of course, November is totally possible. 2025 is totally possible, right? Like, there's obviously a lot of variables. Like, what if the Pokemon game comes out early in the year, and maybe what they're doing with the DLC is to position that, you know?
Yeah.
But let's continue with the chat. Unless there's something else you want to add.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, cool. Alrighty.
The thing is, I could talk about Switch 2 for probably actually 10 hours straight.
Probably.
You know?
Probably. Yeah. Captain Doge, I mentioned this earlier, but I don't know how reliable this is. But apparently, a guy on the podcast Xbox Era said he knows a guy who saw Prime 4 and said it looked unbelievable and had much larger environments than earlier Prime games. But I don't know how reliable that is. Seems pretty believable to me. First off, Prime Remastered already looks unbelievable.
Wait, they said this about Metroid Prime 4?
Correct.
On an Xbox podcast, yeah. I've heard. I'm not too familiar with Xbox Era, but I see the name pop up a lot. So I
Yes.
assume people.
I
Custom?
have heard a lot of Nintendo leaks about Nintendo Directs being talked about there, I think. But I have heard that as well. I've heard that name Xbox Era, but
This is something to look into. There may be another Metroid video coming out soon.
I'm curious why no one else is talking about it. Or I've not
hey,
heard
Captain
anyone else
Doge,
talk
can you
about
send me a link to that? That might I'll have to look into this, see if it's reliable. There may be a video on
make
it.
a video.
It's actually a really big
make
deal.
A video on that.
But I'll tell you, I totally believe that. Like, I don't need a leak to believe that.
Yeah.
Metroid Prime 4.
I found a tweet from August 6th from Big Boss 73, who I assume is just taking from the podcast.
Okay.
Rumor: Metroid Prime 4 title will not be open world. According to Nick Baker, the founder of Xbox Era, and his inside sources, the game is visually beautiful and incredible. He continued that the game is not an open world work, but has huge areas similar to Halo Infinite. That's what the tweet said.
Halo Infinite is open world, isn't it?
Halo Infinite has been. I mean, I haven't played it, but people who have played the campaign have told me that it is similar to like, not similar, but it is on the kind of open world like sphere.
I mean, how does it not like? I haven't played a Halo Infinite campaign for what I understand. It is open world. I don't know.
It was sort of branded as the first Halo, like first.
I mean, is it like Xenoblade 3, where like Xenoblade 3 is like a giant circle that you go in? It's actually more like a spiral, but same difference basically. It's like basically a giant path that has some branching paths, but ultimately you're kind of going in a circle. But these paths, it's a giant circle. It's such a big circle that looks like an open. It feels like it. Yeah, it feels like it. Actually, that's. Whoa, that symbolism. Anyway,
No,
I didn't.
It is. Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Is it
But,
actually?
No. It is, yeah.
Kind of.
It is.
It kind of
no,
like
it is,
comes upon itself.
It is an Ouroboros with origin in the center. That is. Yeah.
Yeah. Point is though.
Implied symbol. Yeah.
Xenoblade 3 is not open, but it's like it's continuous, right? Like
Yeah.
there's like the
And
loading
there
screens are
loading
very
screens in
brief.
between,
Like if you
yeah.
go in a cave and then you come out, like, but it's a continuous world, right? I also love Dark Souls, right? I mean, Metroid and Dark Souls are also continuous worlds, you know, but they're kind of like interwoven.
Yeah.
I totally believe this. Can you send me that tweet, Bo?
It's here in our chat.
Yeah, I already posted it.
Okay.
He doesn't link to the podcast though, and it's like how has 28 followers. So,
Oh.
but based on what people are saying in chat, I'm assuming that's
I'm gonna have to listen to
accurate.
it. This is.
This
I'm
was
not
on
saying the
the
video's coming out tomorrow, but I'll do some research. There's
As soon as it's
there's
done.
honestly a lot I could add to this, I think. But I'll tell you this. It lines up. I don't want to pretend like I'm an insider. Occasionally I've heard things because of people I know here and there, right? I mean, I guess that's how it is for most people, right? But I feel like I'm definitely like, you know, it's just occasionally, very, very occasionally, right? But going back to when I did hear that Metroid Prime 4 is complete, that lines up. This because the idea is that they were already playtesting. So
You
conceivably,
mean content complete?
yeah, content complete. So I mean, I didn't like have a full conversation with this person.
Sure.
So, there's room for interpretation, but that was my interpretation. So yeah, people are like playtesting. That I think that's what that would mean if it's content complete. Point being that Metroid Prime 4 is there's totally something out there where someone who has even better inside information, contact information, could see it and be like blown away by it. And also, if we account for the fact that what Andy Robinson is saying, that there's a lot of chatter about Metroid Prime 4 being the last big Switch game, like this game's it's kind of exciting to think about. Like this game is out there. Like there are people who know about this game. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of exciting to think about.
That it's a Xbox person saying this and not like someone closer to Nintendo.
No, that totally makes sense because Metroid Prime 4 is not a Japan game.
Yeah,
it's made in Texas.
Here in Austin, yeah.
Right there. So developers that work Western developers, they're gonna hear about Western developers. Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if Retro's been hiring people from Call of Duty, I assume maybe they got some Halo staff on there.
Yeah, possibly.
It's a giant network. They all communicate with each other. I think it makes more sense, actually. Like, it makes more sense for them to know about Metroid Prime 4 than it does to know about Tears of the Kingdom. You know?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Captain Doja. I think it's definitely something to sift on. But I totally believe it. I think it's very exciting. Very exciting. And I mean, like, you know, you kind of make the Halo Infinite comparison. Like, what if it is like a big open, not open world, but large open areas?
Huge areas similar to Halo Infinite. So it
who said? But by the way, did they say who said that it was similar to Halo Infinite? Is that from the cast, or is that just something you're kind of?
He continued that the game is not an open world work, but has.
Can you send me links to this? I need to like.
Here.
We did.
It's here.
Okay, all right,
it's
but I can't. Okay,
chat.
so I can't look at the Discord chat because I have.
Do you mean to send it to you directly?
Or on Twitter? You want?
Sure. Because I use OBS. I capture OBS. You know, on it. If I switch to the new StreamYard stuff, I would see the Discord messages.
Okay.
Check Twitter.
Oh man, this is not even like new information, is it?
Well, August 6th. That's what 2 years ago.
Oh, that's pretty new.
I think it should be
this will probably be the Thursday video.
Checked in the sense that like.
Yes, definitely.
Find the podcast and see.
Oh no, this is gonna be research. Like I'm not gonna rush into this. One of the good things about being a Metroid YouTuber, or I'm a Nintendo YouTuber, but you know what I mean, is that there's not a lot of other people like, oh man, there's Metroid. Like, for example, the video I put out yesterday about Metroid Prime 4, that information's been out for like 2 or 3 days already. No one else picked up on it or like was like, I made a video on it because not a lot. Because you know, Metroid's not like Zelda. Right, it's just not gonna bring it up.
Moneymaker.
You, Rob, and Dave are the like big 3 Metroid people I go to for Metroid videos.
We're all friends, so yeah. Joey too, but Joey's on Game Explain. But Joey's the reason there's more Metroid videos on Game Explain now. Yeah. Oh god, this is exciting. Exciting stuff. But all right. And what's crazy though is that if they're hearing about it now, could imply that an announcement could be coming soon, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like why are they starting to hear about it now as opposed to like not 2 or 3 months ago? You know what I mean? Like that could suggest that there's maybe like a demo build or like a trailer build out there or something. It could just be a trip.
Direct next month.
There already have been people like, you know, Jeff Grubb said, like there's already mumblings of a direct. Like obviously we expect September, but I think the important point is simply that if people are already hearing about direct talk happening, you know, maybe there's like some material already out there.
Yeah.
Maybe Metroid Prime 4. This is like the Metroid fan, like, you know, like. I'm obviously I want it to happen, but Nintendo could wait another 6 months. You know, they could. I hope they don't, but
I think it's high time we saw something.
Nintendo, I see you sent me a message with the original podcast. Thank you. I'm gonna check this out, and I will credit you. If I don't want to promise to make a video on this because I have to, you know, look into it, but It's it sounds really exciting. Oh man, it could be huge. It could be huge stuff. Like I'll probably go more into like not just okay, this is the rumor buy. Like no, I'm gonna there's like how this affect the gameplay, the structure, like this stuff. Anyway, man, Brandon, you missed a good podcast. I feel like we covered a lot of interesting things, right? Like may potentially cross promotion with the Mario. He's in the chat.
Oh, there he is. Hello.
Cross promotion, Yoshi, in the 3D Mario with the Mario movie. Like, what if that is what they're doing? I'm so excited.
It was fun.
I'm just getting hyped. Thinking about all the possibilities. I mean, it's already a good year, but man, in 2024, oh, dude.
I wanted to ask Bo real quick. You said 2022 was the year you think was the best for the Switch. Do you think it was better than 2017? And
I mean,
do you think it is better than this year, 2023?
For my personal tastes, it's definitely better than 2023. Because this year is Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4, and then some ports, which both of those games are incredible. But Xenoblade Forgotten Land and Legends Arceus, Pokemon's... I always say Pokemon's my favorite franchise. It's also between that and Xenoblade. Yeah. Legends Arceus made me feel like a kid again in a way that no other Pokemon game has since probably X and Y, maybe.
Yeah.
So getting all three of those in 1 year was incredible. 2017, though, was also a banger. It's between that and 2022, yeah, but...
It honestly might be this year for me because Tears of the Kingdom and Future
if Mario Wonder hits,
yeah, to me
and yeah, Future Redeemed too.
Yeah, Mario Wonder is a big one. Even though I have things that I'm upset with that game, but that's another thing. But Future Redeemed is its own game. Like whenever people talk about Switch games of this year, it is often forgotten and often not talked about because
I wish they had promoted it better.
Yeah.
I wish it came out in June.
They probably mastered it, kind of.
Yeah,
they did.
Just shoved it out the door.
I wish I didn't have to like binge that game and make.
I had to rush it for
also, Advance Wars got kind of boned. Advance Wars got done extra dirty.
Like, that first 6 months is so weird.
Because like I stopped.
DLC.
I have to go back to Advance Wars. I did not play Advance. I only played a little bit of Advance Wars because of Xenoblade.
Me too.
And then I had to play Tears of the Kingdom right after. Like I was in a rush to finish Xenoblade so I could play Tears of the Kingdom in time. So they screwed me on playing it. I'm gonna play Advance Wars, right? Like I think maybe this. I mean the thing is right now I'm trying to 100% both Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4. So once I 100% those, I have to go back to Advance Wars. Fire Emblem. Oh, poor Fire Emblem Engage. I didn't even get to finish that.
Yeah, I didn't finish Engage either, but I will eventually get back into it. Engage was very good though. I enjoyed it.
I liked it, yeah.
But yeah, Engage, Future Redeemed, Zelda, Mario, and other things in between. This year was very good. But yeah, like I was saying before, Future Redeemed is very much a Switch game of this year, not just like a DLC, because like it's like a meaty, like I spent at least 25 hours in Future Redeemed, and that's like
same here. Yeah, it's probably about
that's like a full length video game.
I think I played.
Same thing with Torna.
Yeah, Torna was like 15 to 20 hours for me.
Hey, listen, I spent hours just running around, even in Future Connected. Like I would just run around the field, stare at the stars. It's so beautiful. Yeah. I don't know, man. 2022, 2023. Like I kind of want to just like merge them. Could it's just been like this beautiful roller coaster of games. Well, like
I'm actually thinking about making a video on that. Ever since WarioWare get it together, but really since Metroid Dread.
Yes.
In 2021, dude, it has been constant. I've never seen a software lineup from a first party that's just been this consistently banger after banger. It's crazy.
You could even, if you wanted, like, I mean, Metroid Dread was October, Skyward Sword HD was like July, so there's a little bit of a gap there.
It's a bit of a
next year is going to be even greater.
It's kind of a stretch,
potential Switch 2. And like next year is already insane for me personally because the year is gonna like early in next year is gonna be Final Fantasy VII and Persona 3, which are two massive games which I'm looking forward to. And then near the end is Metaphor ReFantazio, which I'm excited for. These aren't Switch games, but they're going to be like games which I'm going to be dabbling in along with the 2024 Switch 2 stuff. So 2024 will arguably be better than 2022 and 2023 for me.
Oh boy, what an exciting time.
What a time to be a gamer.
We're in a golden age. Like I don't have time to
Absolutely.
play games. I don't have time to play all my Nintendo games. And there's other games. I want to play Resident Evil 4 Remake. I want to play Elden Ring. I
Yeah.
should go play God of War. I want to play Starfield when it comes out. Like, oh, come on.
You need to play Persona 5.
Oh, I
as
need to
well.
play Persona 5. I know. All right, someday when I'm 90.
Yeah.
And I'm
When you have 100
retired.
hours to spare.
Yeah. Man, so tough.
Maybe it's so hard to make time for
maybe
like,
if I
non-Nintendo stuff.
maybe if I make it as a big time YouTuber and I can hire like an editing team, so like
Yeah.
I don't have to work
You don't have to do
60
all of it
hours a
yourself,
week.
yeah.
I could work maybe 30, right? I don't know. But yeah. Anyways, you know, we could go on and on. It's approaching midnight. It's nearly a 4-hour cast. I wanted to be a 2-hour cast, but man, there was just some good stuff we talked about tonight, though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, good
Good,
talk.
yeah.
yeah.
Good chat.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, thank you so much. If you could like the stream, or if you're new here, please subscribe. It's actually extremely helpful. It does help out analytics a lot, and you know, you will get
Andres is
recommended to see the
almost
show.
at 30K. Very close to 30K.
That is true. Maybe tomorrow we hit the goal. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just glad I have internet. That'd be nice. But
yeah.
anyways, more importantly though, please make sure to check out both Bo and NishquickPops channels. They are linked in the description below. Great Nintendo YouTubers as well. But we'll see you all soon. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Later.
Hey, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
See y'all.
Are we off? Are we done?
We are off.